On 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
A Tuesday edition of the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, live video, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm your host, Mike Gill, Josh Henning, producing today's show. You out there, what's going on, everybody? I see some people already in the comments section. 4th of July weekend. Happy late 4th to y'all. A little belated. Thank you to everybody out there for being a part of the show today. Got a good show planned for you. A lot of interesting Philly stuff this weekend. Hey, you know, after spending a week of blasting the Phillies, you got to give them a little bit of credit the way they played this weekend against the Padres, who was a good baseball team for the most part. Took 2 out of 3 in that series. So good job by the Phils. And obviously, yesterday with a big win, put a lot of runs on the board. Didn't have to nail bite the bullpen there. They got themselves within 2 games of 500. Still 4.5 games out of first place, but a couple encouraging signs, I guess, over the weekend. Frank's got the Phillies mailbag coming up in about 40 minutes from now, so stick around for that. Obviously, the Phils, with that win last night, they do it in pretty impressive fashion. They're going to be out in Chicago playing the Cubs, who are struggling, all sorts of struggles right now for the Cubs. They've lost 10 in a row, and the Phils added to that last night with a 13-3 win. They got 5 homers in the game. And, you know, for the most part, you got to give them a little bit of credit last night because Matt Moore pitches that game, and you're feeling, all right, if Matt Moore's pitching, you know it's probably going to be a bullpen type of game. You got to give the bullpen credit. Brogdon came in and threw 2 solid innings. Bradley came in and threw a scoreless inning. Alvarado obviously was the one hiccup there, and Kinsler got the call late to kind of close that thing out. So you saw the Phillies bullpen not make you have to go, you know, it's 13-3, the victory, but keep in mind, the Phillies needed to score 6 runs in the 8th to get it there. That was a 4-2 game going into the 8th inning, and you're thinking, man, can this bullpen hold it? As typically they don't, and they did. So give them credit there. And I thought, you know, over the weekend, the story of the weekend was what? The fact that the Phillies were able to get a couple of close wins against the Padres. You got to give their bullpen look, do I believe that their bullpen has turned a corner? No, I do not. But Zach Wheeler, excellent again on Friday night. Alvarado comes in and was awful. They had to get him out of the game, and we may have seen the anointment of a new closer with Ranger Suarez, who comes into that game and ends up basically getting the win. And who knows if Ranger Suarez is going to be the guy, but his ERA down to .88 on Friday night with the win there. They beat the Padres 4-3, and a couple things in that game. A home run by Didi, getting him back kind of lengthens that offense, right? You got Didi playing shortstop in that game. And then the game on, Saturday night against, I guess it was Saturday afternoon, which turned out to be Saturday night because it was a rain delay. It was like a 2-hour rain delay. They had another rain delay, and they end up coming back and winning that game 4-2. And I guess you got to go back to the bullpen again. Eflin throws 6 innings. They turned it over to this Falter, who has pitched really well as kind of like the piggyback guy, but he came in through 1 inning and got out of it. Archie Bradley came in, did the job, and then they went right back to Ranger Suarez, and he picked up his first save. And Friday night was the first opportunity to see him, and then they went right back to Ranger Suarez on Saturday. And I don't know, is Ranger Suarez now the closer for the Phils? We'll talk to Frank Close about that coming up, as I mentioned, in about 35 minutes from now. But then on Saturday, you know, the Phillies win the series. They get the first 2 games. They get beat up on Saturday. And the discouraging part about getting beat up on Saturday, it's not discouraging. You should come to expect it, is Vince Velasquez. 6 innings, 9 hits, 5 runs. He strikes out 4. it's a Vince Velasquez start. I mean, it is what it is. But he did get you 6 innings. But by that point, you're down 5 runs. You're down early in the game, too. He gave up the bomb to Machado in the first inning, so it's 2-0 there. But the bullpen, De Los Santos came in and threw 2 really good innings. The best pitcher of the day was Knapp. he got 1 out. Andrew Knapp did. Neris, though, the sad part is Knapp had to come in to relief for Neris. And Neris, the score is 5-1 at this point when Neris came into the game. And Neris got hit around pretty good. 4 hits, 6 runs, all earned. He walked a couple. I think Neris is in that spot right now where he's been demoted. I've seen people saying, look, it's time to cut ties with Neris. Look, Neris is not a very elite closer. We know that. He's not an elite closer. But on this bullpen, he's still – sadly, one of the more talented guys you have. They got to figure out. You can't bring him in. The other night, they had him in the 6th inning after the rain delay. They bring him in again. I guess he pitched in the 8th inning with that game, at 5-1? They brought him in that game at 5-1. So you're going from closing to then pitching in a 5-1 game in the 8th. Like, I don't know. I'm not sitting here trying to defend Neris. If you cut him or DFA'd him or got rid of him, fine, but he's still one of the better arms in that bullpen. I mean, here's a guy, his ERA went up to 5.17, I think, over the last week here, just because of the couple of games. But he had some respectable numbers over the last 7 days, though. He has pitched in 2 games, 1 2/3 inning, 7 hits, 8 runs, 3 walks. And, I heard Scott Air on with Billy and Pete on Sunday. And I thought one of the things that Scott Air brought up, the question they asked him was about the mentality of a bullpen guy. And, Scott Air pitched in a different time. He was what they would have known back then as like a 1-batter pitcher. He would face 1 batter. He would come in and throw to 1 batter. That would be a left-hander. And you can't do that anymore. You can't just have a lefty on your team that his sole job is to get 1 left-hander out. You have to face 3 batters. So that's one of the things he mentioned, how the job has changed a little bit. But I thought the one thing that he brought up that was very intriguing about why this team struggles so much and why he doesn't think, they can turn this around. It's one category. And that category simply is walks. This bullpen and this team in general, not the top starters, but the pitchers in general on this team, they just walk too many guys. Vince Velasquez has 36 walks in 70 innings. That's horrible. Jose Alvarado has 27 walks in 32 innings. That's atrocious. Okay, like that's the number. That's the problem for this team. And I thought Eric brought that up on Sunday, and it was like, you know what? Yeah, you're walking too many guys. Archie Bradley in 20 innings has 12 walks. That's no good. Coonrod has 28 innings pitched. He has 10 walks. And the thing that he mentioned about why he would turn to Ranger Suarez was 31 innings pitched. He only has 8 walks. He throws strikes. It sounds so simple, but my gosh, at the big league level, if you can't throw strikes, holy mackerel, you're putting yourself way behind the 8 ball. The 2 guys who throw the least amount of strikes, Velasquez and Alvarado, they're the 2 worst on the team when it comes to throwing strikes. And you look at their numbers, and it makes a lot of sense. Look at the whips on those guys. What is whip? Walks plus hits, innings pitched. In other words, how many runners do you put on base every inning that you pitch? Alvarado's putting 1.5 runners on every single time he takes the mound. Every time he takes the mound, you're basically starting the inning with somebody on base every single time he takes the mound. And almost 2, 1.5 is a horrible whip. Zach Wheeler, 0.94. So in other words, barely one guy per inning gets on base against Wheeler. Nola's is respectable, 122. Matt Moore's is actually not too bad. Not Matt Moore. Zach Eflin's isn't too bad, 123. Connor Brogdon, he's a guy in the bullpen, 119. That's not bad. Archie Bradley's 160. That's awful. Ranger Suarez, 0.69. Very good. Bailey Falter, 0.86. Very good. Falter's numbers suggest that he's the real deal right now. In 14 innings, he has one walk. So if I'm trying to build this bullpen for the second half of the season, and I'm starting to look at these numbers, I now have a full half. I'm saying, and Air, I thought brought this up, and I thought it was a really good point. I'm looking at those walks. I'm looking at those whips. I have a full half a season to go off of. So I'm building my bullpen that way. Suarez has to be the guy right now. And Bailey Falter, he's only pitched in 6 games. But in 14 innings, those numbers in 14 innings look legit. He's only given up 1 walk. He's only given up 11 hits. So his whip is under 1, which is outstanding. His ERA, 2.57, very good. So I'm looking right now at Suarez and Falter as the 2 guys in my bullpen that I can trust almost the most. It's almost sad to say that, but that's the truth, that those 2 guys I can almost trust more than anybody. The next guy on my list would be Brogdon. So I would almost go Suarez is my closer, Falter and Brogdon are my 7th and 8th inning guys, and depending on who's up. Like if you have lefties up, I'll go with Falter first. If I have righties up, I'll go with Brogdon first. Because those 2 guys right now have been the next 2 most consistent pitchers. Now, if I had it my way, I would go with Spencer Howard, who pitched over the weekend for AAA and actually made it through 5 innings, looked pretty good. I'd give him a shot in the bullpen. I would actually try to use Spencer Howard as my closer or my 8th inning guy. This team doesn't want to do that. But right now, those 3 bullpen arms, Brogdon, Suarez, and Falter, they're the 3 guys in the second half of the year that I'm trusting the most. I'm giving you guys the first shot to have the most trusting roles on the team. The problem with Alvarado, I can't trust him. Yeah, I know he's got 43 strikeouts in 32 innings, which is tremendous. It's over 12 strikeouts over 9 innings. It's phenomenal. But the walks is just unacceptable. Can't get past the walks. 27 walks in 32 innings. That's embarrassing. You're a big league pitcher, dude. And you can't throw strikes consistently enough. So I can't trust Alvarado in big spots. I can't trust him as my closer. I can't trust him as my setup man. If I need a big strikeout, sure, I can bring him in and try to get that big strikeout in a high leverage situation, maybe in the 6th or 7th. Hey, there's a couple runners on. I need a strikeout. Like, what's the best case scenario? I need a strikeout here. All right, I go to Alvarado. But other than that, I can't use him as a closer. I can't use him as my setup man. So the 2 guys I'm going with right now on this roster are Suarez and Falter and Brogdon. They're the 3. So that over the weekend, so a good interview by Billy and Pete with Scott Air, because I thought it really highlighted the mentality of a bullpen guy is knowing your role and throwing strikes, not putting guys on base, not adding high leverage situations. And who throws the most strikes on this team? Those are the 2 guys, Suarez and Falter. They throw the most strikes on this team. Brogdon is next. Brogdon, in 32 innings pitched, he has 29 strikeouts and 12 walks. And the 12 walks is a little higher than I'd like, but his whip is 119. He doesn't give up a lot of hits, and he can get that strikeout. I think you're going to see Brogdon consistently lower that ERA. I think he's the one younger pitcher in that bullpen who I like. Other than that, I don't really know that you have much else. You obviously can't build a bullpen around 3 freaking guys. You got to get more. And this is where I think the Phillies, and we'll see, the trade deadline is still a couple of weeks away. I think if Dave Dombrowski wants to go for this, he will do whatever he can. And even if it means trading, say, Gene Segura, Didi Gregorius, Andrew McCutchen, the group of guys that we hear about all the time. Like, why don't they trade these guys? Those are the guys, if you're Dombrowski now, that you are putting out there and you are asking, can somebody give me a bullpen arm to try to shore up this bullpen? Every call they make for those that group of players, the Segura, the DDs, look, I don't think they're going to get it, but that's what you're after. And I don't know, we could try to look at all the rosters in baseball right now. Who's on the trade block? Who needs a second baseman? Who needs a left fielder? Who needs a shortstop? And quite frankly, who needs a first baseman? Or a DH if you're in the American League? I did see over the weekend, it was good to see Alec Boehm, I guess, hit a home run for the first time since a while back. Boehm has really struggled with the power. He just has 5 home runs this year. But Boehm has actually been a lot better at the plate in the last month. He's up to 240, which he was way down there. But the power numbers have not really followed him. That's a little discouraging. But Rhys Hoskins right now at 231 with 19 homers. The 19 homers, look, you got to give him credit. He is, still delivering some power numbers. But can the Phillies try to move Hoskins and get some bullpen help for this year's team? Because then you can move Boehm over to first base. The problem is I don't know who you play third the rest of the way. Seriously, I mean, you could probably play Gene Segura at third base if you had to and use that rotation of Nick Maton and that group of guys. Right? You could use Maton and Torreyes and Luke Williams. You could get through second base with that crew. And if you want to play Gene Segura over at third base, he played third last season. And you move Boehm over to first. Problem is, you lose Hoskins. I get it. You're losing 19 home runs out of your lineup. But they need more help in the bullpen than anything else. And if Dombrowski wants to try to make it. Now, since his 2-home run game against the Giants, over 15 games, Hoskins has a 214 batting average with 6 homers and 13 RBI and a 323 on base percentage. So you're selling him at maybe a low point here, but maybe those home runs, is the start. He's a streaky guy. There's no question. But 19 homers, 49 RBI, 71 hits. He leads the Phillies in all those categories. Hits, doubles, home run, RBI, total bases. I mean, you're giving up your best, I don't want to say your best offensive player because that's not accurate, but you're giving up your most productive offensive player in Rhys Hoskins. But the question Dombrowski has to ask is, are we a bullpen arm or two away from making a push for the playoffs? And is that worth it to us? 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just search 973 ESPN on those properties, and you can see the live Sports Bash today. Frank Close has the Phillies mailbag. He's actually in Chicago with the Phils, so we'll have Frank on in about 20 minutes from now. Jeff Nadeau, we're going to start looking at some betting lines for the NFL season, plus the NBA Finals. We'll get his thoughts on that. Michael Kaskey-Blomain, right now, over at 97.3 ESPN.com, what is Ben Simmons' trade value? Well, one NBA insider thinks it might be better than everybody else thinks. For more on that, go to our website, 973ESPN.com, to see what Sports Illustrated's Chris Mannix had to say on the Ringer podcast about Ben Simmons' trade value. The article's up now at 973ESPN.com. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, and we are your home for Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight. All right, we're taking it till 6. Live show today with plenty to do. And speaking of tonight, you got the NBA Finals on 97.3 ESPN. Suns and Bucks, I'll give you my thoughts on that. Giannis is upgraded from doubtful to questionable now for Milwaukee. And I'd like to see, at both teams at their best, obviously. You put the Bucks in there without Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's definitely a different feel, different, Look, Giannis is two-time MVP. We talked about it back in, I guess, the first round or the second round when he played Brooklyn. And we're talking about how limited he is and could he be the best player on the best team? Well, he's kind of answered some of that, but he is kind of it's just interesting because Giannis has kind of passed off late in games to Middleton, but he's still so productive for the first three rounds. It's amazing that Giannis does what he does with such limited offensive ability. And, we talk a lot here because of Ben Simmons' lack of offense and his limitations on offense. And it has been kind of described that Ben cares too much. He cares about being embarrassed. He cares about what people think about him. And Giannis simply doesn't care. That's one of the difference is Giannis, he'll airball a shot, doesn't care. He'll shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. At the end of the day, you look at the score sheet, 33 points. Giannis just simply doesn't care that it is going to be a frustrating night for him to score those 35 points. But that's number one. Like, does Giannis play in this game? And does he play in this series? It looks like he will play. Not maybe tonight, and he could play tonight, but what kind of Giannis are you getting? Now, I said last week, I think the Giannis thing is similar to the Embiid thing. Embiid had to miss some time with the knee. I would imagine Giannis is in a similar situation, kind of a pain tolerance thing. But he is the difference maker in this series if he plays or not. Why? Because you have to account for him defensively. Who are the Suns going to defend him with? I would imagine DeAndre Ayton has to get that call. That's the problem. Like a Ben Simmons, you have to figure out who's going to defend him. I know you might say, why? He doesn't do anything offensively. You are right. In the playoffs, he did, or I should say in the series against Atlanta, he was a liability on the floor. There's no debating that. But typically, you have to figure out who's going to defend. Now, you don't have to, Giannis, you have to account for, even though he doesn't shoot all that much. You still have to have somebody defending him. Antetokounmpo scored 80 total points in the two games against Phoenix this year because they don't have anybody to defend him at all. So Ayton gets stuck in a lot of one-on-one situations. And look, Ayton's a nice athletic defender, but you don't have to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo every single night of the week. And that could be a big factor in this series because you can't put Chris Paul on him. You can't put Devin Booker on him. Maybe you could try Bridges here and there. I think, you go back to game 4 when he left that series, and it looked like it was pretty bad. But they're saying no structural damage. So it kind of makes me feel like what's going on with Giannis happened with Joel. It's no structural damage, probably some sort of small this or that, no torn ligaments, nothing that would require surgery, but pain tolerance thing. The fact that they were able to get through the series against Atlanta without him, it shows you that they do have a capable secondary cast. And I guess it has really elevated the level of Middleton, right? Middleton now has put himself in an interesting spot. Chris Middleton has always kind of been, he's an all-star, but if they win this title and Middleton closes games out for them, it puts Middleton in a pretty interesting spot in his NBA career, does it not? Now, there were reports that if there had been a Game 7, Antetokounmpo would have played in that game. So I would imagine you might see Antetokounmpo tonight. The question is, with the way he plays, everything's so downhill, everything's so just physical. Now, the matchups I just talked about, who defends Giannis if he plays? Well, it's probably Ayton, which makes this interesting because I think one of the more intriguing matchups in this series will be Drew Holiday and Chris Paul. Drew Holiday, keep in mind, has always been like that just below all-star level player. And keep in mind, the Bucks gave up a lot to go get Drew Holiday. His defense and very underrated. He is kind of taking a back seat, though, because of Giannis. He takes a back seat. Not as aggressive as a scorer as he can be, I think, anyway. I think Holiday was obviously a better scorer in New Orleans. But Holiday, I thought, was the difference maker in the Eastern Conference Finals. You remember in game one, Trae Young had 48 points. The rest of the way, of course, Young got hurt. Drew Holiday kind of zoned in on him, and Trae Young, 7 of 22 from three-point range in the next two games. Of course, he got hurt. So how does he defend Chris Paul, who, keep in mind, is a different player than Trae Young is? Not the same scorer, but one of the best floor generals, one of the great point guards. Like, in a league that no longer really features point guards, he's still like a point guard. You know, put your hand up, call the play kind of point guard. But Paul can score if you need him to. Crunch time, Chris Paul, 30 points in the second half against the Clippers. He completely controlled the flow of that game. And this is one of the best Chris Pauls we've seen. So this is going to be interesting. Chris Paul can kind of write a legacy for him. Giannis and the Bucks can write a legacy for them. This is kind of a legacy series for two players, Chris Paul, Giannis Antetokounmpo, but even the secondary guys. Drew Holiday, who's always been kind of thought of as the secondary player. You made an all-star game, but you're not really an all. Chris Middleton, you're not, those guys, Devin Booker. Drew Holiday versus Chris Paul, I think, is one of the most intriguing battles in this entire series. And then you got to look at, the way the Bucks defend with Brook Lopez. They do a lot of drop coverages. Mike Budenholzer, where did he come from? San Antonio. He was on the bench with Greg Popovich. Same as Brett Brown. Well, the Bucks and Sixers play a lot of drop coverage. Brett Brown, when he was the Sixers coach. Budenholzer does a lot of that coverage as well. And you have that Bucks drop coverage with Brook Lopez, who kind of hangs in the paint, but you got a great Suns pick and roll team. So this is going to be interesting because you remember the last series, everyone was talking about it. You got to get Brook Lopez off the floor. Well, he scored 30 in the one game. A lot of times the Bucks give the ball handler the opportunity. They'll give him the space, and they want you to take mid-range jumpers. But if you give mid-range jumpers to Booker and Paul, woo, baby, could have a long series. But we'll see how the Bucks defend the pick and roll. I think of the Suns will be a very interesting scenario here. And then another big factor is Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, PJ Tucker, Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez. Can they make threes? Look, the Bucks are in the finals by not playing their best basketball. If you watch the Bucks play during the regular season, they shoot the three. Very good at it. In the playoffs, they're 31% on three-pointers. Way off of what they did in the regular season. Middleton just 33%. Holiday he's under 30%, Drew Holiday. Now, Pat Connaughton, 36, Brook Lopez, 35, but this is not who Milwaukee typically is. They're a good three-point shooting team. So can they hit their threes is another big one for Milwaukee in this series. It should be a good one. And then which number two steps up? Booker, who I don't look as a number two. I think he's only a number two because Chris Paul's on that team. But Booker is a number one scorer. Middleton, is he a number two? He kind of is to Giannis, but on this team in the fourth quarter, so it's like the Booker versus Middleton, that whole thing. I think it makes out for a very intriguing finals. Yeah, it's not the star power. It's not the LeBron. It's not the Curry. It's not Durant in Brooklyn. But this one definitely is worth watching. I think there's enough stories that should make it for an entertaining game. It's just so weird in the NBA when we get two teams playing against each other that nobody envisioned. The Bucks, some people had, but it was Brooklyn. Everybody had Brooklyn. There were some people that were going Philly. The Bucks were kind of the third team, and here they are. But nobody had Phoenix at the beginning of this year. And nobody had, quite frankly, had Philly at the beginning of the year. It was really Brooklyn when they had Durant and Kyrie. It was Brooklyn. It was LA for most of the season. These were long shots, these two teams. Long shots don't rate well, but it's worth your time to watch. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We're going to go back to the Phils, who had a good weekend. Can they build off of it? What did we learn about the bullpen? Do they have a new closer? All that and more with Frank Close, our Phillies insider from 97.3 ESPN.com. Brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Download the free mobile app right on your phone. Just go 973ESPN.com/app and get the free mobile app and get all of our stories from 97.3 ESPN.com, including Ben Simmons' trade value. What is it? Check it out now at 97.3 ESPN.com. All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Phil's out in Chicago. So is Frank Close from 97.3 ESPN.com. His Phillies mailbag is up right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. But we got a lot of Phil stuff we want to hit on, including your mailbag questions, and Frank will answer those. And these questions is, by the way, Real Muto and Wheeler are representing the Phillies in the All-Star game. No Segura, but let's bring Frank in as his Phillies mailbag is posted right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. Frank, what's going on, man?
Not much. Very hot out here in Chicago, too.
You are in Chicago. All right. How is the Windy City?
Hot. Otherwise, one of my favorite places to visit.
Yeah, Wrigley Field's amazing. It is such a great town out there. Let's start with a couple of things here. This weekend, by default, they had to go to Ranger Suarez. Do we feel that Ranger Suarez has taken over as the closer in this bullpen?
Well, last night it really seemed like the Phillies were going to go that direction before they ended up really exploding for all those runs. So I think that Joe Girardi is going to use Ranger Suarez in this role, at least for the foreseeable future. Let's face it, Hector Neris had that blow up where he blew all those saves within a short time span. So obviously he couldn't do it anymore. And then Jose Alvarado wasn't much better. And then, as we saw too, the guy that they signed for $6 million this offseason, Archie Bradley, looked a little shaky as well. So I think what the best thing the Phillies can do right now is to use Suarez because it keeps the guys before him in their accustomed roles. And, I think Suarez, he didn't do great every time with runners on base. The one quote unquote blown save he gets credit for, he inherited a couple runners and, he got his batters out, but he didn't get a couple of those batters base runners out the one time. But I think for the most part, he's somebody who's very steady. He's somebody who doesn't panic. He just seems to take the ball and go about his business. And even though he did have that one blown save recently where he let those two inherited runners score, remember, kind of his turning point was down in Miami when he inherited a bases loaded, no out situation from Spencer Howard and got the Phillies out of that with allowing just one run. And that ended up basically helping the Phillies take that victory. So, I think this is a good idea. I like his demeanor. I kind of compared him in the mailbag to a left-handed Jenmar Gomez, if you remember him. Not that they're the typical closer types that we think of when we think of a closer, but I just think that he just grabs the ball and goes about his business, and that's how Gomez helped them through 37 saves several years ago. And I think Suarez would do just fine over the course of the rest of the season if he is the one getting the ball, if the Phillies can't do anything at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I look at one thing, and I heard Scott Air on the radio this weekend bringing this up, is the Phillies bullpen walks too many guys. That's their biggest problem. Well, Suarez, that's one thing that he is very good. 31 innings, only 8 walks. Is he going to be that power arm striking guys out as a closer? Not necessarily, although 31 innings, he has 29 strikeouts. But to me, the whip is very low. That's a good sign. And to me, I would do what you said. I would keep Suarez in that spot. The other guy I got to ask you about is Bailey Falter. He's pitched 14 innings. He only has 1 walk. He has 16 strikeouts. Does he have a big enough sample size with a .86 whip that you would say he's a guy that I got to start trusting a little bit more?
Right now, I think they have no choice. Falter, I would actually like to see go back into the starting rotation at some point. Now, the Phillies are going to need more starters. Now, Matt Moore is back. Spencer Howard, he did pitch in Trenton, with the Iron Pigs on Saturday night. He pitched 5 innings. I think he struck out 5, didn't allow any runs. But you don't know what Spencer Howard's going to be. Chase Anderson also is rehabbing with the Iron Pigs and just out Trenton as well. But I think that Bailey Falter might be the better starting pitcher option if they're going to need a starter. And there are going to be some doubleheaders down the stretch, like on Saturday the 16th, I think, or Friday the 16th. That's the first Friday after the All-Star break. They're going to need an extra starter pretty much immediately after the break. So I think that's a better spot for him personally, but I think for right now, you kind of need him as that long man who can give you multiple innings. they really don't have anybody else that can do that you trust. And so I think that we've seen a couple times Falter has sort of bridged the gap between an underwhelming starting performance and the back end of the bullpen. So he seems pretty flexible. I think for now, you want to try to keep him in that role because he makes games that might get out of hand and might get out of reach. It keeps them in reach. So I think that's good. I don't know about putting him too far in the back end just yet. Might he fill in once or twice if guys aren't available because they worked a lot the previous couple days? But I think there's still a shot that he becomes a starter on this team.
The other guy, I guess, would be Brogdon. I mean, I know last year he got off to a bad start. They had to send him down. But when they brought him back up, he was way better in the second half of the season. And you wonder if now's the time that you start to give Brogdon a little bit more of a more important role.
I think right now, Bradley is still probably for now going to be the guy that gets that right-handed back-end role. But I think the second option there would be Brogdon at this point. Yesterday when they were trying to hold on to that game and keep the game close, they went to Brogdon and he gave them 2 really good innings. But I think he's somebody who will eventually find himself sort of in that 8th inning right-handed role. Ideally you have somebody at the back end that can pitch the 8th, that can throw from the right side or from the left side. I think as he's getting more experience, he's been getting better. So as you said, second half last year he was much better. Still kind of a young rookie to start this year, but you can see him really settling into the role. He's not going to be perfect, but I think in the long term he does have a future in the back end of a bullpen, and he could even be a closer someday. But I think the Phillies don't want to go that route just yet. I think they're going to they'll roll with Suarez first, but it's definitely definitely can be said that he is a big part of this Phillies bullpen right now, and the fact that he's a homegrown guy and young certainly bodes well for his future and the future of the Phillies bullpen.
All right, a lot of people want to know, but Laura's the one who had her question highlighted by you in the mailbag, and is it time to simply cut ties with Hector Neris? This one's kind of tough because while the ERA and the saves, and the ERA just went up over this weekend, he still has been your most consistent guy. So do you just say, look, it's time to cut ties, you just move on, or is it not? Are you not ready to go that far yet?
A couple of things that really stuck out about Hector Neris, but it'll be in the next couple of weeks. Well, he seemed to be really bad the other night. It sounded like, or it looked like he got that third strike. That would have been a quick, clean inning, and it ended up blowing up. He didn't get that third strike, and it seemed to rattle him, and then he was all over the place. And also, an appearance before that, I didn't particularly care for him shaking off JT Realmuto a whole ton. Now, could be because he's not feeling the same. He's not feeling like his pitches are working, meaning he's lost a lot of confidence, perhaps. But we see this with relievers a lot. They have down years. They have up years. They have down years. And certainly in 2018, Neris had a down year. And he did come back very nicely in 2019. And even though he had maybe Dominguez and Robertson, ahead of him in that Phillies bullpen, now they both got hurt, but he really did reclaim that closer's role and never looked back. So it could be something about his confidence right now. It could be something about the fact that relievers have those up and down years. The difference right now is that he is set to be a free agent after this year. So I think you're going to get to the point where if you think that he's not going to settle back in for 2021, I think he does have value in a trade. If you're acquiring other assets, maybe he can be an asset to trade to somebody else. But I don't know if you would normally just give up on a guy, but if he's close to the end of his Phillies tenure, which he probably is, and you have other options and are working, maybe you go with the hot hand. I would not simply release Hector Neris. I know I've heard some people call for that. I think that would be extreme, but if he can be of value to you in a deal and you're getting other people back in separate deals, well, maybe you consider that. Or if the Phillies drop out of the race and somebody is interested in him, I think he does have some value, and I think other teams would be interested in him if he became available in trade. So this is one though that they're going to really have to walk a tightrope as you go forward. But since he should be a free agent soon, if you can trade him while he's sort of down in your bullpen, and maybe he does figure it out for somebody else, but you don't have a lot of patience when you're talking 2 months left at this trade deadline.
He's a tough one because, as the closer, look, he's not a great closer. Look, I think we can all agree on that. He's probably still one of the better options that this team has, even though he frustrates you because he blows a lot of games. But quite frankly, that position in baseball now is one of frustration. There are not a lot of elite closers out there. That said, if he's not the closer, it's almost as if the other roles for him, he just falls off completely. It almost feels like his best role is as the closer, and if he's not going to close, he's not really more a serviceable bullpen guy.
Yeah, the other night when he came in, certainly down 5-1, I believe it was. It seemed like the right time to get him back into a game, where you thought, okay, well, pitch to your strengths, get those few outs, and then keep us just in case we can get 4 runs in the bottom of the ninth. And then it got way out of hand. So the hard part right now is if he's not excelling in those situations and not getting his confidence back in those situations, then I don't know when you're going to get it back. And as I think I heard Ricky Vitaligo talking about the post game, Neris just seemed to want to get out of there. And then finally, of course, I think that was Andrew Knapp's knuckleball that got the last out of that inning, which he could just not find.
Frank Close, let me ask you, they beat the Padres 2 out of 3. They had a big night last night. Anything encouraging that you can take from the weekend series and what we saw last night to make you feel like, hey, look, they could be turning the corner?
I think a lot of this is in the Phillies players' head right now. We talked last week about how they didn't really have a winner yet, and I feel like that they just haven't learned how to win. and just getting Didi Gregorius back into that lineup and having the full lineup, I think that's sort of given them a new sense of confidence that they didn't have before. And if that's something that they can carry, I certainly think that they can pick up and move. Now the hard part would be is if somebody else has an injury, are they going to feel like, oh no, we can't do this? But certainly beating the Padres 2 out of 3, even though Sunday's loss wasn't a fun loss. A good start against the Cubs. We'll see if they can feast against Jake Arrieta tonight, who has been terrible his last 5 starts for the Cubs. I think this will go a long way. And I saw something online where somebody said that the Phillies had one of the, I think it was the toughest schedule in the first half of the season, and now they're in the second half. They have maybe the second easiest schedule according to win percentages. So who knows if they get a combination of confidence and the fact that they're facing less challenging opponents. Maybe they can go on a little bit of a run here. And if you looked at the comments from the players yesterday, they seem to think that this is their opportunity to show the front office that they can be winners, and that the front office should add at the trade deadline rather than subtract. So it's nice to see the whole lineup together. They seem to have that confidence back, and I can see them going on a nice little run now. Boston's going to be hard over the weekend, but at least for now, I think this Cubs team, which has lost 10 in a row and is floundering, if the Phillies can come in and really just kind of continue knocking the Cubs to the ground, I think that confidence will perhaps carry them forward.
Frank Close is in Chicago. Phillies and Cubs, as he mentioned, Arrieta will get the ball tonight for Chicago. He has got off to a good start. He has kind of struggled recently, and the Phils for the rest of this series, of course, as he mentioned, the Cubs have lost 10 in a row. They're going to try to continue keeping the Cubs on that long losing streak. Phillies will go with Nola tonight, Wheeler tomorrow, and Eflin. So could the Phillies' top 3 pitchers close out a 4-game sweep in Chicago? We'll find out. Frank, enjoy the rest of Chicago, man.
Thanks a lot. Catch you soon.
All right. Frank Close's Phillies mailbag appears Tuesdays on 97.3 ESPN.com, and you can check it out right now and get your questions in for next week. Frank is in Chicago covering the Phillies series against the Cubs, which oddly, Wrigley Field, every game, an 8:05 tilt. Yep. All right, when we come back, Jeff Nadeau is in the house. I'll tell you how to bet these NBA Finals. We'll take a look at some NFL futures as well. And then Michael Kasky-Blomain on the NBA Finals and the latest on Ben Simmons. What's his trade value?
3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
All right, hour 2 of the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN on a hot Jersey Shore summer day, 4th of July weekend in the books, which means we're closer to the NFL start of training camp. Oddly, the NBA Finals are here, which are normally done by now, but they start tonight. We'll get Jeff's take on them. We'll do a little NFL stuff as well, as Jeff Nadeau from the Hoops Betting Hour is back. And I know that this NBA Finals tonight, we've got, I actually think the matchup should be fun if Giannis plays. If he doesn't, that takes a little bit off the ledger for me. But I do think he will actually end up going now, Jeff. You think Giannis is going to play tonight?
I don't. I think he'll play pretty soon. He was obviously upgraded to questionable. It's obviously helpful, but we see so many of these guys try to give it a shot, and then they're just not real effective. So I guess we'll see. If you could just hold him out one more game, I mean, it's not the end of the world. You lose one game. Goal is get him back a bit more healthy for game 2 on Thursday or even Saturday or Sunday, whenever the next game is. I don't think he'll play tonight, but they got to get him back as soon as they can.
Yeah, I definitely I did see reports that he was going to try to play if there was a game 7, which would kind of say if he was going to try to play. And although you might be right, maybe game 7 he would have tried to play. But since it's a game 1, and you're right, you don't have to win the first game to win the series, maybe then he takes another extra day here. But I do think you'll see him at some point in this series. So let's start with that, because I think most people, Jeff, do you agree that Phoenix is the favorite here?
Oh, very much so. And they should be the favorite. With Giannis back, I mean, when you're looking at the series price, I mean, they're basically minus 200. I mean, they're quite a decent favorite at this point. And the thought is you're not going to get much Giannis. Trae Young, say what you know about him. I mean, he didn't look himself. So, that kind of changed, I think, the tenor of that series. Yeah, they should be a favorite. I mean, they've been terrific. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I've said it before on your show. In this town, I mean, it's pretty hard to swallow that Phoenix won 19 games in 2018, 2019, and they're now in the NBA Finals and a large favorite. So when you look at this team compared to the team in this town, it's hard to swallow because they did it pretty simple. They went out and drafted people, and they made really good free agent acquisitions. And
now, don't get me started on this, Jeff. Don't get me started on this, Jeff Nadeau.
Well,
they had a lot. They did have a lot of misses. A lot of misses.
Well, they did.
They hit on Booker, and then
so
they
did
got
the Sixers, Mike. I mean,
they people like this is one of the arguments. They look. I like context is king in some of these things. They drafted Dragon Bender number 4, some guy Georges Papadopoulos number 13 overall. They missed on Josh Jackson at number 4. Can you imagine if they hit on those guys? Look, people act like this is some model franchise. They've been the Drex for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has for me to do with just the last year or two, just with bringing in the right coach. I mean, I think that can be really important now in the end, especially with a young team. Monty Williams is a good coach, and I think he's pretty much shown that. But things like Jay Crowder, things like getting Cameron Payne and players like that, really helpful. Yeah. So yeah, they should be a favorite. I think tonight, it's hard to bet against them tonight. I mean, they've just been so good against the spread. They've been so good in the first half. There are some really good trends that back up, and I'm not a big trend guy, but in the NBA Finals, Mike, with a team coming off 2 or more days rest in the first game, I mean, those teams are almost automatics at home against the numbers. So, with the coupled fact that Milwaukee's not a great road team as it is, they're without probably Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think they're a pretty good matchup for the Suns. I think Middleton could be a little bit of a concern, but just because I think he's just much bigger than some of their wing guys. But I think Crowder will be up for it. I would play Phoenix here in Game 1, preferably first half, but I would probably look full game as well.
So full game, it's DraftKings 6, 5.5 on FanDuel. So you can get it at 6 and 5.5. The over/under started at 217. That's up to 219.5. So that thing started to creep up a bit.
Yeah, I which is interesting. Obviously, with Chris Paul involved, they're not as quick a paced team. I guess they have to just kind of hope Milwaukee thinks they're going to shoot the ball better. They shot the ball well in Game 6. They haven't shot the ball well in the playoffs, though, from a three-point standpoint for the most part. I think they're around 32-ish%. So, yeah, I'm pretty high on the Suns, particularly in Game 1. We'll see how it comes back. It was very lucrative betting on Ayton props, DeAndre Ayton props. There are some props out there that are interesting, but I'm going to kind of just say quick here. I think first half looks good. This has been a very good first half team this year, and I just think that the spot just kind of favors Phoenix here.
All right, Jeff Nadeau, we look at the NBA Finals. They start tonight, and obviously you can hear those games on 97.3 ESPN. Now, last week when you were on, I kind of caught you, put you on the spot a little bit, but we've had a week to kind of look at some of these NFL futures, which I think is a pretty fun bet to kind of take a look at, which was best regular season record odds, and trying to kind of pinpoint a couple of teams that, give you some good value. And I found a couple that I like, but I'm interested in a couple that you like as well, because I think this is a bet that there is some value. You can make some money on best regular season record and worst regular season record.
Yeah, and for me, the worst one is definitely interesting. I kind of mentioned that last week. I mean, Detroit is a very good candidate for me. They're not even the absolute favorite, but this is a team that has to play 6 games that they're going to lose, I think, right out of the gate. I don't know if they'll win a game in the division. That's a tough division. You look at the first couple games of the season. I mean, you got to play the Niners, you get the Ravens, the Bears mixed in there. They got to go. They got to play an Eagles team that I think is better than there. I think this is at most a 3-win team. I think they're pretty bad. This roster sucks. I don't trust Jared Goff. He's always hurt. Their skill position players are weak. This is not the group that had Kenny Golladay and Calvin Johnson many years ago. They went from really being maybe a fringe playoff team a couple of years ago to a bad roster. At least when you're looking at a team like the Texans, I mean, there is some things that you like. I think at plus 350 to have the worst record, I think the Detroit Lions make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned plus 350. I think if you're looking, though, to make a little bit more, I kind of like Cincinnati at 10-1 to kind of fall in there. Like, I agree with you. I think Detroit's worse than Cincinnati, but it wouldn't surprise me. They play Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. That's a tough division that they got to play in. So it wouldn't shock me if they got swept in the division. The offensive line's a disaster. Their defense isn't great. I like the kid Burrow, but him and Chase should be fine, but they don't block well. It wouldn't surprise me if they won 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned that. I actually had them as a team to, I think, bet on. Do I think they're going to be a good win-loss team? Probably not. They really made no stretch to go out and get better defensively. It's still a young secondary. You mentioned the offensive line. I think there's things to like about it. I think they made some moves to get better there, but I think if they can block up front, I think they'll be a good over team.
Oh, I agree with you there. If they can block up front, but I'm not holding my breath on that.
Yeah, no, and that's been something in the past, And what happens if Joe Burrow goes out with an injury? Where do you go then? I think it's I think it's a good one. I think I'm a bit higher maybe on them than you. I will say, Mike.
I'm just looking at value, strictly value.
Oh, sure. 100%. I will say this, Mike. I think this league, from a whole, I think I could probably only name 2 or 3 really bad teams. I think at least even the Bengals, the Eagles, teams that are down lower, even Jacksonville. I think they're capable of 5, 6 wins. I don't know if there's any 2-win teams in the NFL anymore. But I guess with the extra game, you never know. Houston and Detroit are particularly bad. I could even say some good things about the Jets and Bengals. But when I look for a value standpoint, I would probably maybe say Jacksonville, just in the fact that maybe in the case Trevor Lawrence doesn't necessarily work out, Urban Meyer's all sorts of issues as a first-year head coach. Defensively, have they made any strides? Do some of these receivers they have, do they take the next step? Does Chenault become, good in his second year? That's not an easy division.
Mm-hmm.
I think you make the case Houston could beat them in straight up games. They're obviously not going to beat teams like Tennessee and Indianapolis. So, yeah, I think Jacksonville 12-1. I don't hate that.
I like the value, right? I'm looking at the value there. Like Detroit, can I wet my beak there? Okay, yeah. But if I'm looking to hit a home run, those are the ones. Cincinnati, Jacksonville, because you're getting double-digit odds on those bad boys there.
Yeah, I think in the case of maybe the worst record, it obviously is tough. I like the Lions. I'll have some fun with that one. But yeah, Jags, I think maybe are worth the shot. Best record, now that's where it gets interesting because, I remember betting last year. I took a team to go undefeated. I mean, it's so hard to do. But with an extra game this year, it's a little tougher as well. So, but again, it could even maybe make sense that it's not as tough. So, what did you like as the best record?
Best record? All right.
Yeah.
I like Tennessee at 40-1.
Yeah.
For a best record. All right. I like what was the other one that I like for best record? Dallas 25-1.
Mm-hmm.
They're my two. 40-1 and 25-1. That to me is worth my time. I can get invested on those two numbers there.
No, the Dallas one I think is a great one. That was one that I was going to kind of mention. I've told you before. I think this team is.
Yeah, my Dallas buddy reminds me, your boy likes Dallas the way I said.
No.
You're killing me.
And no, I don't want to admit it because I hate the Cowboys, but I can't. And I know every year we kind of elicit them as a Super Bowl contender, but, I thought Dak Prescott was playing as good as anybody, as we know. I think offensively they're probably top 3, 4 in the league. This is a good football team. I think defensively they're going to make a pretty stark contrast to last year. I mean, Mike, as you know, if let's say you're giving up 28, 29 points a game, if you can just get down to 22, 23, you're going to do significantly better because your offense is so good. We know that's a division that's good. I don't think it's great. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they ran it the gamut. It's not easy to do that, but yeah, I think Dallas 25-1's a good one as well.
Now remember, guys, this is best regular season record. This isn't Super Bowl. This is just best record. I mean, so that doesn't mean this team has to win the Super Bowl. They just have to have the best record. And these are some of the ones I like. The other one I like, if I'm looking up under the double digits, like I'd get involved on San Francisco at 12-1, Baltimore and Cleveland. And maybe not Baltimore so much, but Cleveland 12-1 and Buffalo at 9-1. I think like 9-1 is enough where I'm like, all right, I know they're going to be good, so I'll give them a shot at 9. Like Tampa Bay and Kansas City, I don't know if there's enough skin in the game for them.
Yeah, I'll throw out the team that I think is going to represent the NFC this year. If it's not Dallas, the LA Rams. I'm pretty high on this group. I think defensively you can make the case they might be the best in the NFL. Their schedule's tough, but I look at that division. I'm not real interested in Seattle. San Francisco has some questions. Arizona could be hit or miss. Think they could be really solid. I don't know if they're a playoff team. I think the Rams are going to be very good. I think Stafford is a big upgrade over Goff. That offense, kind of the weapons that they have, the defensive and offensive lines, and the fact that McVay, I think, will really kind of have a better version of, I think, what he wants there. You just got to keep Stafford healthy, but defensively they are very good. If they can just score, 20-plus points again, I think they're going to win a lot of games.
All right, that's Jeff Nadeau. Don't forget the NBA Finals, the Hoops Bet playoff NBA Finals, the Hoops Betting Hour. They'll be telling you how to bet those games all the way through. What do we got on Euro?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the show. I'm actually done with the show at the end of the finals. And then, Mike, for the first time in a very long time, I will be unemployed. You believe that? No, I have no contracts. I have no nothing. So I'm going to take some time and get ready for football and everything. But as far as Euro, I have the game on now. I have Italy at 10-1 to win the whole thing. So I'm very much rooting this one in. Very happy with the price that I got. I've loved this group, and I'm very happy with where I'm at with it. But then, once that's over in the finals, I'm just kind of get ready for football. College basketball, lots going on in college basketball right now. You got a lot of kids today coming back that are big names. You still got the NBA draft to come, which I'm a big fan of, and a lot of things to get excited for. And then next year we got the World Cup. So, it's kind of over the next year going to be awesome.
All right, man. Check out The Sit Down with Jeff Nadeau, episode 13.
That as well, yes. Episode 14 out tomorrow. So go check that out. If you love mob history, you love all that stuff, go check that out. Thank you, Mike.
Take care, man.
See ya, brother.
Jeff Nadeau, there he is. Good conversation on the NFL bets. I hate to say it, I like Dallas at 25-1 to have the best record in the league. That doesn't mean I think they're going to have the best record in the league. Give me that kind of value, though. I'll take it. Jeff Nadeau, always good. Prop swap, don't forget, for all you prop swappers out there, it's a great time to prop swap right now. You go buy a Suns ticket and a Bucks ticket. Now you have them both. And watch the offers kind of come in. Right? Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Go to Prop Swap, and basically you get the best odds in the country. Some of those people are still holding on to that Suns ticket that we've been telling you about. Luke Brigandy and I, at 40-1, people got that Suns ticket, and they're holding on to that thing. You could go sell it right now for big-time bucks at PropSwap.com. NBA Finals, Ben Simmons. What is Daryl Morey really holding out for? MKB joins me next. NBA Finals tonight on 97.3 ESPN. We got you covered at 8 o'clock. Got the Bucks and the Suns. You can hear it all right here. Chris Paul looking to finally, he couldn't get to the conference finals. He finally did that. Now he's going to try to win the championship at 36 years old. Would be an awesome story there. Better story, Bucks winning it. We talk so much about the way the teams are built. Obviously, because people look at see, you don't have to do what the Sixers did to win. Well, keep this in mind. The Suns have been bad for 10 years. When you're bad for 10 years, what happens? You get a lot of high draft picks. This team could be a lot better. Michael Kasky-Blomain, CBS Sports. They really could be a lot better. They missed on a lot of draft picks themselves. Where they hit on was not the high. They missed on number 4 multiple times. They had Josh Jackson miss. They took Dragon Bender, another miss. They hit the 13th pick a couple of years ago. I can't even remember that guy's name. Not in the league anymore. Miss. The one they hit on was number 13, Devin Booker. They had the number 1 pick. They got DeAndre Ayton. And then they kind of tied it all together when they got Chris Paul. So what's a better story? Phoenix winning the championship this year or Milwaukee winning the championship this year?
That's a tough question, Mike. I think obviously it probably depends on which fan base you ask. But, I think it's just cool that it's going to be a fresh franchise either way. Obviously, the Suns have never won one. Bucks haven't won one since the early 70s. So, both teams obviously have gone through a big drought. It'll be cool to see, some new teams in there. I think, the Suns story is a pretty unique one because they went from, obviously not being in the playoffs for a decade, being pretty, consistently near the bottom of the standings in the West, like you alluded to just now. I think that's a little bit more rare than what you're seeing with the Bucks, which is obviously a team that has, got to the playoffs the past several years, hit a few roadblocks, had to overcome some adversity, and finally they were able to get through. That's kind of, something we've seen over and over again. But in terms of the Suns, it's really rare that you see a team go from, being basically at the bottom of the West and out of the playoffs for a decade straight to then all of a sudden they're competing for a title. So I guess I would lean toward the Suns slightly.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary to think about how much better this Suns team could really be if they had hit on a lot of their picks. I mean, they missed a lot. This is a franchise, Michael, that was regarded as one of the worst. I mean, their ownership group was mocked a lot and talked about how bad of a situation it was to play there. As we mentioned, they missed on a lot of draft picks, and then look, they haven't been good really in 10 years. I mean, this hasn't been a good team that's been kind of building their way up. They went from not being a playoff team. It was really last year in that bubble when things kind of changed for them.
Yeah, I think last year, like you said, in that bubble, they won all 8 of the games that they played down there, and they showed some the bubble basically felt like the playoffs, even when it was just those regular season games. Everyone was watching it. The teams that were there were all in contention for a playoff spot. And I think you finally got to see some of those young guys that kind of got a taste of that atmosphere. Obviously, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, they stepped up and they weren't able to make it to the playoffs at that time. But then obviously you add that experience and add in a guy like Chris Paul, and just all the factors kind of came together at the right time. Obviously, I think we'd be remiss not to acknowledge the fact that, they definitely were on the receiving end of some good luck in these playoffs. And who knows how the Lakers series would have turned out if Anthony Davis remained healthy. Who knows how that Clippers series plays out if Kawhi gets to play. But overall, I think the fact that the Suns were able to, so quickly turn things around, really it's a positive sign for, all of them, the young guys, Chris Paul, the coaching staff. It's just, a good story for that team for sure.
Michael Kasky-Blomain covers the NBA for CBS Sports and the Sixers. And has since 2009. So obviously you look at the finals here and you take a look at this one. Giannis, we don't know if he's going to play. He has been upgraded to questionable, but is he the difference maker on who wins this series? In other words, if Giannis plays, do the Bucks win? If Giannis doesn't play, do the Suns, or do you like the Suns no matter what?
No, I think Giannis's health is a huge factor, Mike. I think if he plays, and obviously, if he plays is one thing, but for him to play, he has to be, he can't be like we saw James Harden in that second round series where, yeah, he was playing, but he wasn't actually James Harden. I think, obviously Giannis needs to play and he needs to be, if not at 100%, really close to himself mainly just putting pressure on Phoenix's defense consistently, because I do think he's a matchup issue for Phoenix if he's out there. They don't really have, a guy. I'm sure they'll probably throw Jay Crowder at him. They'll probably try to use DeAndre Ayton on him at times, but he presents a mismatch for them in my eyes. And I think if he plays and he's healthy, this one has potential to go 7 games. Whereas, if he's out there, not only the Suns would they continue their streak of super good luck, but I think they'd be able to, take care of Milwaukee pretty easily at that point.
All right. So Giannis, obviously, big factor here. Look about Drew Holiday. Let's talk about Drew Holiday and Chris Paul and how that matchup really will factor into this championship.
Yeah, I think that's obviously going to be, a key one, Mike. I think Drew was huge in that last series, obviously. And he's basically been huge since that's pretty much why Milwaukee brought him in. He's not only a great perimeter defender, but he's also a guy that they've relied on heavily to get buckets down the stretch. And he's a guy that can, make Chris Paul work on the defensive end too. He's really good at using his size, getting guys in the post, taking advantage of his size down there. So he'll be making Chris work on both ends of the floor. And, technically they could put him on Devin Booker at times if they wanted to switch things up. If Booker was going off, he has the length and the athleticism to, really give a guy like Booker a hard time. So to me, Holiday, especially if Giannis is unable to play or if he's not near at 100%, I think Drew's the X factor that if he kind of is unleashed and continues to play aggressive like we saw toward the end of that Hawks series when Giannis was sidelined, he could definitely be the X factor and could, even potentially keep the series somewhat interesting even if Giannis is out.
Yeah, I'm interested, too, if Giannis plays, who defends him? Do they go with DeAndre Ayton? I mean, that to me is another situation there when you look at matchups. Another matchup would be, the Bucks like that drop coverage, and the Suns are a great pick-and-roll team. Brook Lopez was getting pick-and-rolled to death early in that series against the Hawks, and they were able to kind of overcome it. So you wonder how the Bucks defend the Suns pick-and-roll.
Yeah, I think, like you said, that will be a huge thing because so much of Phoenix's offense is predicated on running that action. They do it arguably better than any team in the league, and they did throughout the regular season. They have a lot of good, secondary action off of that in terms of rollers. They run the Spain pick and roll to perfection, which is basically when a guy sets a screen for the initial guy that set a screen when he's rolling to the rim to kind of free up the lob pass. They have shooters, obviously Mikal Bridges, Booker, other guys that are, space the floor when you have Chris Paul in that action. So it'll be interesting to see, Mike Budenholzer, one thing he's been criticized for in the past has been being a little bit slow to make adjustments in these playoff series. He's obviously fond of the drop coverage, like you mentioned, especially when Brook Lopez is in there. And you would assume that Phoenix obviously knows that and is going to look to exploit it. So I think that'll be one of the interesting parts of the chess match between the coaches to see, if Phoenix relies on that heavily, and if they do, how the Budenholzer and the Bucks kind of are able to adjust and adapt to, even the thing moving forward.
NBA Finals tonight here on 97.3 ESPN. I think one of the interesting stories about the Bucks, Michael, has been they have not shot well from three, and here they are. I mean, they're only shooting 31% from three, and here they are in the finals. I don't know if that says more about the injury situations in the East or that the Bucks can beat you in a variety of ways.
Yeah, I think if you're the Bucks, you would probably, obviously it's not a great stat to show how you've played, but I think you probably feel pretty good about that. Like you said, the fact that they're able to advance 3 rounds and get to the finals, despite the fact that, one of their biggest weapons during the regular season wasn't at the peak of its powers in the playoffs. But to me, the Bucks are, an interesting team because they can play a multitude of ways. They have a lot of size in the front line. I think they took advantage of that well in the closing out the Hawks the last couple games. When you're talking about, Lopez, Middleton, Giannis, although he was out, they have a lot of size, and PJ Tucker obviously in that front court, and they have the guys that can shoot. So to me, they can beat you in a multitude of ways, and I think that obviously that's going to work to their advantage in this series.
MKB, Booker, Middleton. Could that be the difference? Who of that group steps out? Because you got Giannis, don't know, Paul, we think, but Booker versus Middleton, they're the number 2 guys in this series. So which of those guys do you like?
I think you got to go with Booker in that situation, Mike. I've been really impressed. Obviously, Middleton's been around in the playoffs a few times, and he's been great in these playoffs, but he still has shown flashes of inconsistency. He'll have a big second half, but he's kind of MIA in the first half of some games. To me, I've just been really impressed with the way that Devin Booker has responded in these first playoffs. He's obviously, a legitimate star, a guy that can get you a basket at any time. And he doesn't seem to me to be the type of the guy that's going to shy away from the moment in the finals. But, it's going to be the opposite situation. I think he's really going to embrace the spotlight and the big stage and elevate his game. So to me, I think, obviously there's a bunch of keys for each team. But for me, if I'm the Bucks, making sure that, you can't stop Devin Booker, but containing him, making his shots difficult so that he doesn't see a lot of, shots go through the basket early on, and not letting him get, any good, easy open looks from the perimeter should be one of the top keys for them if they want to win this series.
Yeah, this one interesting because I think Booker is, if they win a title here, he puts himself in another category, right? I mean, he is one of those young guys that you're just kind of waiting to see who's that next group after the LeBrons and the Durants and the Currys and all those guys that were perceived as you need to have one of those guys to win a title. Can Booker kind of elevate him to another level by winning this title here and possibly even being like the MVP of this series?
Yeah, for sure, Mike. Absolutely. And I think for him, it's great because we heard a lot, he's been known for a while as a good player in the league, but there was a lot of discussion about him having empty stats or, being a guy that couldn't necessarily, contribute to a winning team. He was just a guy that put up numbers. And I think it's pretty cool to see that, you give him one, a great player like Chris Paul, you bring in a good coach and a couple things, and he immediately, those empty stats become stats on a team that's all the way in the finals. So I think he's, like you said, he's really next in line. That you've heard comparisons. He's been compared to Kobe, obviously, other things like that. And I think, it's one thing when you're doing it in the regular season, but when you've been able to do it, throughout the 3 playoff series and all the way into the finals, you're already establishing yourself as that class of superstar that can get it done in the postseason. And if Phoenix, like you said, if they can go on to win, if they do win, there's a great chance, it could be Chris Paul, but there's a great chance that Booker would be the finals MVP based on, how important he's been to that team all year. And, at that point, you're in another stratosphere as a star player if that happens.
All right, let's shift some gears over back to Philly here and see what's happening. There has been some rumors that the Sixers have already turned down deals involving Ben Simmons, one of which Malcolm Brogdon and a first-round pick. Apparently, the Sixers quickly turned that down, and according to a report that they would only trade him for an all-star caliber player. Chris Mannix was on the Ringer podcast with Bill Simmons, and he says he's hearing from executives that they think that Ben Simmons' trade value is actually higher than what is being publicly portrayed. So where do we think this whole Ben Simmons on the trade market, the fact that there are some teams already interested, is that a good sign for Philly if they want to try to move him?
Yeah, definitely, Mike. I think it's a good sign for Philly. And for me, I've basically heard the same thing since the season ended consistently, is that, his trade value is still there, especially, it's higher than what you would think hearing, people in Philly or reading Twitter in Philly for sure. There's obviously, a little bit of skepticism after the way he played in the postseason. But I think, teams look at the thing strategically, and you're still looking at, a player that's under 25 with, I don't need to go through his credentials, but the skill set and the defensive ability that he has. And I think there's just a belief that he can straighten things out, at least in terms of the confidence and the free throw shooting, which, that in of itself would be a big step for him. So I think that, there is definitely a pretty decent market value for him and interest in him out there. But I don't know how much that really matters for the Sixers because it's still a situation where it's basically a star player or bust. This isn't, if this was a couple years ago when we were talking and we're still in the process years and the Sixers would be willing to take on, draft picks or unproven, promising young players for a guy like Simmons, that's not the situation now. They've finished, they got to the second round, Game 7 twice in the last 3 years. Joel was runner-up to the MVP. I mean, they're as much in win now mode as you can be, and that it really severely limits the options for a potential trade because at that point the only trade you really want to make is for a superstar guy. There's a couple options, obviously the Dame Lillard trade potential. A guy like Bradley Beal, maybe something like that. But other than that, a move like you mentioned, the Malcolm Brogdon and a first-round pick. Saw something from the Golden State Warriors. They have a couple first-round picks. That coupled with a guy like Andrew Wiggins, something like that is just not going to move the needle for the Sixers because they have to decide whatever they get back. It has to be a player that's going to immediately not only step in, but if you're going to trade Ben Simmons, you want someone coming back that's going to make the team markedly better immediately. And there's just not a whole lot of players like that available on the market at any given time.
Yeah, I know that I saw the one from Golden State. Somebody asked me Wiseman, Wiggins and the number 7 pick. The problem is I don't see Wiggins, Wiseman, and Embiid coexisting.
Yeah, and even if they did, Mike, I think Wiseman's still a couple. I liked him as a rookie. He showed a lot of flashes, but I think he's still a couple years away from contributing to a championship level team at a reliable level. Even if I also have concerns about how those two would fit, but even if they potentially could fit together, I just don't think he's ready to contribute at the level that the Sixers need. And that's I don't want to call it an issue, but I think that's the thing the Sixers are going to run into a lot in a lot of these trades. A lot of the teams that would probably be interested in Ben are the teams that are kind of building up themselves and are, looking to move on, unproven players or looking to move some draft picks, as opposed to teams that already have star players and are looking to add Ben. I think the number of that, it's just, it's going to be tough.
Michael Kasky-Blomain, the NBA Finals tonight. And if real quick, I wanted to ask you about, I saw your story yesterday about the Wizards vacancy. I guess Sam Cassell is not among the finalists there, right?
No, he was in the talked about for that first batch, but he's not coming back for a second interview with them.
Okay, so I was looking at that and wondering, like, he had a big impact apparently on Simmons. If he left for a head coaching job, would Simmons be more apt to be like, hey, he was a guy that I really connected with. If he's not here, I don't want to say he would be pushing for his way out as well, but I was wondering, would that relationship impact the Sixers even say, look, if Cassell's not here to work with them, that might be a problem.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a case. Like you said, I don't know how much that would have impacted him if Sam did left, but I think the fact that, so far all signs point to him remaining in Philly is a solid sign if they do potentially bring Ben back. Like you said, those two definitely, developed a solid relationship over the year. Ben mentioned a couple times during the season how much he appreciated and how much he enjoyed, working with Sam and developing his game that way. So I think that's, and given the fact that there's a big possibility that he remains with the Sixers, I think that Sam still being on the coaching staff is a positive for sure.
Michael Kasky-Blomain at the Real Mike KB on Twitter for the NBA Finals. And your official pick is?
So, for tonight, I'm going to go with Phoenix. My official pick through work was Milwaukee in 7, with the caveat that Giannis is, healthy enough to make a difference. If not, obviously you're going Phoenix in probably 5 or 6.
All right. MKB will be back on Tuesday next week as we look at the NBA Finals. And by next Tuesday, if there is a game, it would be game number 6. So we'll hope that it gets to that point. We love to see a 7-game series when the home team's not involved. MKB, take care, man.
All right, Mike, take it easy.
And he, like all guests here on the Sports Bash, brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan, now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Online at mattblattnissan.com. Michael Kasky-Blomain here on the Sports Bash. Always excellent when it comes to the NBA. Coming up tonight at 5, it's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT's here. We'll have fun with the PT. I heard him and Billy this Sunday. Good conversation with Scott Air. They also, I was listening to those guys talk about why they didn't have fireworks at the Phillies game. And I tried to text him and I said, you do realize the games were both scheduled at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Or one was a 4 o'clock and the other one was 1 o'clock. Not conducive for a firework display in broad daylight. The Phillies fireworks are scheduled for July the 16th, which I would imagine, you look at July 16th, and I'll do that for you, I would imagine that July 16th would work out to be a night game. In fact, not only is it a night game, it's a 7:30 start. They're pushing it back even further to make sure that they get darkness, which is very key to a firework display. Actually, it's a doubleheader. They got a 4 o'clock and a 7:30. Something tells me they're not going to do the fireworks after the 4 o'clock game, though. Just a hunch. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I don't know that PT ever actually explained that to Billy. Because I texted Billy, and he didn't seem to like my answer. He still believed they should have had a firework display. A 4 o'clock start. I said, Bill, if they have a 4-hour game, which is a long game, you're still not done when it's dark out. At 8 o'clock ending, it's still light outside. You need it to be like 9:30 for the fireworks. We saw the fireworks on Sunday night. It was after 9 o'clock when the cities put the fireworks out. You need it to be pitch dark out there. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I got some text messages I want to get to. 609-403-0973. I'm going to give you the latest on this Ben Simmons from Chris Mannix, who was on the Ringer podcast. I'll tell you what he had to say. Coming up next. All right, 3:45 coming up at 4 o'clock today. It's football at 4, and we will be taking a look today at the AFC South. Houston, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Tennessee with Andrew DeCecco here on football at 4. Also, it's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT is here. So I was just talking about the firework thing. And, the Phillies played 2 afternoon games, Saturday and Sunday. Not conducive for fireworks. They don't make the schedule, by the way. Major League Baseball does. So it might be bad planning by Major League Baseball, but I'm sure they're not wondering when they make the schedule, how can we satisfy the Phillies for their firework display? They're going to do it on the 16th because they don't have a home game between now and the 16th. They're on the road. They can't have a fireworks display in somebody else's ballpark. They're in Chicago and then Boston on the 11th. The first half of the season ends when the Phillies come back to start the second half of the year. They will be at home, and that will be on Friday, July the 16th. That's a doubleheader against Miami, and they will have the firework display after the second game when it's dark out. You can't have fireworks after a 4:05 game. It's still daylight outside. So they'll have the fireworks on Friday at 7:30 is the start time of the second game of the doubleheader, and then after that, they'll have the fireworks. Now, Saturday, they play a 6:05 game. So even that is a little close if they wanted to do it on Saturday the 17th. And then, of course, on Sunday, everybody has to play at 1 o'clock. There's only one game, the Sunday night baseball game, that is allowed to be a night game. So they couldn't do it on Sunday. They had a 4 o'clock game start on Saturday. So that's why there was no fireworks this weekend. I thought that was pretty self-explanatory, but apparently it wasn't. I was like, the Phillies played a 4 o'clock in the afternoon game. You can't have fireworks at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the end of the – if that game is 4 hours long, which is a long baseball game, even in today's world where baseball games are long, 3.5, 4 hours, you're still not getting to nighttime. It's only 8 o'clock for a 4-hour game. So they couldn't do it Saturday, and Sunday they played at 1 o'clock. You obviously couldn't do it after that. Now, you could ask the question, why didn't they do it on Friday night, which was the 2nd? You wanted to have fireworks on the 2nd. Evidently, the Phillies felt that it was better to do it when they got back from the All-Star break and do it on. Now, and this might be another reason too. The Padres were in town. If you noticed, the Phillies had a pretty decent crowd for the game this weekend. They had 25,000 fans, I think, for all 3 games. It's some of the better crowds that they've had all season long. There could be part of them saying, look, San Diego's pretty good at the beginning of the year when they're looking about when to do the fireworks. San Diego's pretty good, so instead of doing it on the 2nd, we'll do it on the next homestand against the Marlins, who don't draw a crowd. So what we'll try to do is bring a team in that's not all that good, or when we have a team in here that's not all that attractive of a draw, Miami, we will do the fireworks on that night. And I think you'll get that on the 16th is when the Phillies are doing their fireworks. They play Miami for 4 coming out of the break. They're at New York against the Yankees for a pair, and then they play Atlanta for 4 at home and Washington for 4 at home. The Phils are in a spot where they can make up a little ground with some division games. They got 4 against Miami, 4 against Atlanta, 4 against Washington. They play Pittsburgh for 3, then 4 more against Washington and 3 against the Mets. I mean, they're playing division foes through July into early August, so they can make up some ground in this thing. Do I think they'll do it? We'll see. I'm more apt to say you might see a team kind of go about 500 through that game, right where they are right now, 40-42. And keep in mind, in there, you would have the trade deadline. So that was something else to keep an eye on. Remember, this team is 4.5 games back, and that's where they are. Speaking of the trade deadline, the NBA is no deadline right now. They are wide open for trade. So the Sixers are rumored to have already turned down deals involving Ben Simmons. One such offer came from the Indiana Pacers involving guard Malcolm Brogdon and a first-round pick for the Sixers' polarizing point guard. Jason Dumas reports that the Sixers are holding on to a stance that they will only trade Ben Simmons for an all-star caliber player. But just because the Sixers rejected that advance doesn't mean they aren't open to trading their 3-time All-Star. However, it's going to take an All-Star caliber player, as Dumas reported, for Morey to pull the trigger. Remember, he's still trying to figure out what to do with a kid who's just 24 years old. And many around the NBA expect Morey to get that type of offer, with Simmons' value not as low as people might think, at least according to longtime NBA writer Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated, who recently appeared on the Bill Simmons podcast on The Ringer. He said, quote, "I hear from executives all the time that are loving this Ben Simmons trade value has cratered conversation because they hope that Philadelphia believes that. I think his trade value is actually higher than what's being publicly portrayed. But you're going to continue to hear a lot of the negativity around Ben Simmons. In other words, I think people value him pretty high across the league because I do think there's a belief that someone's going to figure out this shooting thing." That's interesting. The whole that there's a belief that someone's going to figure out the shooting thing. Like, boom, all of a sudden, ding, 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 this will connect. It appears one name that Morey would be willing to move Simmons for is Portland star Dame Lillard. So if Lillard is to leave the only city he has ever represented since entering the league in 2012, the Sixers would pounce, right? They would definitely jump in to make an offer, no question. Now, Lillard, 30 years old, reportedly not happy with the new hiring of new head coach Chauncey Billups out there, leading to speculation that he might be ready for a fresh start. Lillard would be a great fit, obviously, playing with Sixers center Joel Embiid, giving the team a nearly unstoppable pick-and-roll duo. Lillard, 28 points, 7.5 assists for the Trailblazers this season. He had on 39% of his threes. Other teams have interest in as well. The Timberwolves reportedly want Simmons, quote, badly, and other teams will be likely lining up to make an offer for the 3-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year runner-up, and first-team All-NBA defensive player. Keep those things in mind. There are teams around the league that do value that just because you don't. And I am the first to admit to you, he was extremely disappointing in the series against the Hawks, almost embarrassingly disappointing, to the point that it's gotten to this. But as Mannix suggested, these executives around the league are saying, I hope people think that the value of him is too low because then I can offer something low. But most people don't think that the Phillies or the Sixers are ready to take that, right? They don't think that getting rid of Simmons is a high priority for them. Now, they're willing to listen, no question about it, if they can get a player that fits their roster better. That's hard to find, finding someone who fits their roster better. And when I say better, who defends 5 positions, because it's a big part of what the Sixers do with him. Who makes other players around them better? Like if Ben Simmons leaves, what does that do for Tobias Harris? What does that do for Seth Curry? What does that do for the other guys who all are better players typically? Now, in the series against the Bucks, that was out the window, and hence the Sixers lost. Against the Hawks. It shows you how important he was to the team because when he went down, so too did everybody else. Kyle Dubray is watching on YouTube. He says, Mike, I've been saying forever that the league thinks more highly of Simmons than you do. Who, me or people out there? Because I value Simmons. I was very disappointed with him. But people around the league always value our players more than we do. And then they go there, and then we say, why didn't they do that for us? Well, because you mocked and criticized the guy the whole time he was here. You go someplace else and get to play freely. Sports Bash live. Football at 4. Coming up next, we preview the AFC South. Carson Wentz, can he lead the Colts to a championship? Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And it's brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. Andrew DeCecco's here. Our continuing look at the divisions today. We go to the AFC South, which is very interesting. Of course, with Carson Wentz residing there, we don't know what's going to happen with the Houston quarterback situation. Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, and maybe the best of them all resides in Tennessee. So let's take a look at this interesting division now as Andrew DeCecco's back as we take a look at the AFC South today for today's edition of Football at 4. What's going on, Andrew, man? How you been?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Yeah, man. Happy 4th, and hopefully you had a great weekend and we're able to kind of recharge the batteries. And, hey, here we go. Football season is here. We've been taking a look at these divisions. This AFC South, kind of intriguing now, obviously, with a new quarterback in Indianapolis. You've got the Tennessee Titans who have really bulked up, Jacksonville with the first pick in the draft, and then there's Houston. So let's start with them because, quite frankly, we don't know a whole heck of a lot about what they're going to look like because if Deshaun Watson is not there, this team could be in the running for worst team in football.
Yeah, and they have a first-year head coach in David Culley. He was the Eagles wide receiver coach many years ago under Andy Reid. He sort of presided over the receivers that included Todd Pinkston, James Thrash, and Freddie Mitchell. But nonetheless, he has a work cut out for him, David Culley, and he does have an experienced defensive coordinator in Lovie Smith. But I mean, like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the quarterback position. But they do have some fast weapons in Brandon Cooks, and they have Andre Roberts, who's a good punt returner, and Randall Cobb. Larry Tunsil's there at left tackle. They have some pieces there. Titus Howard, of course, at right tackle. So they have some young pieces there on the offensive line, but I mean, when you look at the Deshaun Watson situation, you just don't know how that's going to play out. And the thing with that is they don't have a formidable option behind him. Tyrod Taylor is a guy that's played all right in Spurs, but he's not consistent enough to really carry an elevated offense, especially when you're looking at some of the heavyweights in that division, such as the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. So we'll see what happens there, but it doesn't look too promising on the surface.
Yeah, David Johnson, obviously was a great player a couple of years ago, has really fallen off in recent years. Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, seems like they have some decent weapons at that spot. You mentioned the offensive line. So if Watson plays, if he is able to play and he's out there, what kind of offense do we see this Texans team having?
Well, I think it'll be a middling offense. And the reason why I say that is there's no, as good as upgraded as the pieces are around Deshaun Watson, they don't have that top flight receiver. They have a lot of smaller, quicker, shiftier receivers, but they don't have that bona fide, big, go up and get it type of wide out there. Nico Collins is somebody who they drafted out of Michigan in the 3rd round, but he's still going to take a little bit of time to get acclimated to the NFL level. He may end up ultimately being that guy, but they don't really have that, week one, I would say. But like you said, the running game is going to be really interesting because you have David Johnson there, Mark Ingram's there as well. They can have a little two-headed monster approach, take a little bit of pressure off of Deshaun Watson and the passing attack. So, I mean, I think it'll be a middling offense, but I also think it's going to be one that's going to be maddeningly frustrating each week because I think they're going to sort of spoil a lot of opportunities and there's going to be a lot of stalled drives due to sort of overall inefficiency.
Yeah, you mentioned Mark Ingram. They also added Phillip Lindsay and Rex Burkhead as well. So they do have some nice running back options on this team. So it'll be interesting to see what that offense looks like. Defensively, they lost J.J. Watt. This is a team that was a very good defensive team. They've kind of gotten older, and it seems that they have taken some steps back on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they had a one of the top defenses in football. It seems like it was not but they're going through a sort of a growing process there with a lot of younger players like Charles Omenihu, a player who I really liked over Sharif Miller when the Eagles drafted him. Charles Omenihu was still on the board, but nonetheless, he's sort of settled into a nice role there, contributor for the Texans. So he's a player like on that defensive line. Whitney Merciless is still there. Kamau Grugier-Hill is an interesting addition that they have there. Again, one of those pass defending linebackers, a little bit undersized, but very much in the mold of today's NFL defenders that you really need for that second level. The secondary is something that's a big question mark to me because I'm not really sold on Lonnie Johnson as in the safety, and they have Vernon Hargraves has been sort of a guy that's bounced around a little bit. He never really lived up to his first-round billing. Bradley Roby's there. I like Bradley Roby, but I think he's a corner that takes a lot of chances and often gets often bites him, and it bites him and hamstrings the defense because I think he takes a lot of chances and goes after the football, but doesn't necessarily have the long speed to make up for that. So, I mean, they have some players there, but ultimately it's not going to be consistent enough to get it done.
All right, head over to Jacksonville in the South, where they had the number one pick for a reason. They were the worst team in football. They land up with what some people look at as a generational player in Trevor Lawrence. So let's start there. Has their quarterback situation been fixed? We've heard tank for Tua, and, he didn't turn that franchise around. Is Lawrence a difference maker for this Jacksonville team?
Yeah, I think so. And there's pieces around him there for him to be successful in the early goings, right? I mean, they have Marvin Jones as a veteran receiver, very underrated wide receiver. I thought he did a lot of good things there with the Detroit Lions, and of course with the Bengals. When there was lots of a spotlight on him, I thought he was very consistent there. So they're going to have him. They have DJ Chark. They have Laviska Shenault, a player who is a very versatile weapon when healthy. Health is going to be paramount with him, obviously, because he missed some time at Colorado, and then last season he was banged up a little bit as well. But I think that he has some game-breaking ability there. And then I love their running game. I mean, how can you not like Travis Etienne and James Robinson, who was one of the better stories to come out of the 2020 season. So, I mean, he's going to have a lot of guys that he can work with outside of that. They really struggle at the tight end area. They really haven't found any stability there at that position. So when I say outside of that, Mike, have a lot of pieces to work with for Trevor Lawrence.
That should be fun, just kind of watching him, see what kind of NFL player he kind of evolves into. Defensively, this was a team that went to the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago based on that defense. They have fallen on some hard times there. They do have some interesting names on that defense, but I would imagine that their defense, again, is going to struggle.
Yeah, they're going to struggle a little bit, but again, a very young defense. I think they're sort of on the up and up. Well, I look at Josh Allen, the pass rusher from Kentucky. He's an ascending player. I think that he has double-digit sack ability there. Taven Bryan has not quite lived up to his billing, and he's been a bit of a disappointment now. Very inconsistent player down to down, but he's going to be right there in the middle of the defensive line, their first-round pick from 2018. Jihad Ward is somebody who they added, I believe. He's a local guy. Miles Jack, Joe Schobert, they still have there. Remember, they gave up a lot to get Joe Schobert, and he's in the middle linebacker, of course, a very physical presence there. Their secondary, to me, is a little bit puzzling in how that's going to sort of be configured because Trey Herndon is another, I think that he could be upgraded from their corner there. And then they have Shaquille Griffin, of course, and C.J. Henderson. So they have a few corners there. I think C.J. Henderson is going to really elevate his game this season. But as far as his supporting cast, I think Rudy Ford, when they signed him, I think he's on top of their depth chart, I believe. Now, they dropped Andre Sisco, the safety from Syracuse, in the third round, and they added Tyson Campbell, the corner. Remember, he played with Eric Stokes at Georgia, so they added him in the second round as well. So they do have some young players that are worth developing there, and that could very well factor into the starting rotation. But as of right now, I think C.J. Henderson is the only thing that they have to bank on right now.
All right, let's go over to Tennessee. A lot of people are excited about this team, the Titans, Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback, Derrick Henry. You wonder when Henry is going to have that DeMarco Murray type of moment where he goes from just cranking out yards to just kind of falling off. Do you feel like that is coming soon for Henry, or does he still have big-time yardage years still in the tank?
Yeah, I don't see it happening this year. I don't think that regression is going to sort of transpire this season. I think if you're a fantasy football fan, you can make an argument that he should be the top one or two selections there. He's up there with Christian McCaffrey. I think just based on volume alone and his red zone production, he's going to be the sort of engine that drives that steers that offense, I think. And we added Julio Jones, you have A.J. Brown. Josh Reynolds is a very underrated signing as a slot receiver there. He was productive in his time when he saw increased snaps with the Rams. And then we mentioned the running backs that are there, and it's also going to be, can Ryan Tannehill, does he have it in him to be that quarterback that can elevate the offense and take advantage of the skill players that he has at his disposal?
All right, defensively, or excuse me, let's stay on the offense here because you mentioned Julio Jones is there now with Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, another big-time player. This is an offense, Josh Reynolds, too, they added as well. This is an offense that can be a lot more dynamic than the ones they've had the last couple of years.
Yeah, and to me, that's always been their problem. They never really had a bona fide top pass catcher that you can force feed targets to that's going to be a go-to guy in critical moments. They never really had that. I think another player on their offense who we haven't mentioned that is poised to emerge this season is their tight end, Anthony Firkser. Of course, John Smith is no longer there. I think Anthony Firkser is going to be a player that can sort of be a security blanket over the middle. I think he can stretch teams vertically. I think he's local. I think he's also athletic enough to get vertical and be a more and they can do some things with him as well. So they have a number of weapons that they can work with, and they really haven't had that to go off of. They've always had that stout defense in the running game, but now all of a sudden you have a pretty impressive aerial attack.
Defensively, I think when people think of the Titans, because of Vrabel, they think defense. They got some pretty interesting names on that defense of Jaylen Brown, Bud Dupree, Byard in the backfield. Hooker is back there as well. Caleb Farley they brought in. So Jenkins is the other corner. This is a defense that should be better because I think we thought of them as defensively, but they did not live up to what they were supposed to be defensively last year.
No, and I think ultimately the biggest hamstring for them, the biggest detriment that held them back was that they didn't have a consistent pass rush. And now I think they've addressed that in the offseason. That's what really set other teams apart from the Titans. And people say, what were the Titans really lacking? They seem to have it all. Well, it was a consistent pass rush, and they added Bud Dupree to pair with Harold Landry's there. Rashawn Evans is a fantastic linebacker. Jeffrey Simmons on the defensive line is a player that really, when he was drafted, he was coming off an injury, but he really just stepped right in and started playing seamlessly and became one of the better defenders, the defensive trenchmen in the NFL. So, they have guys there in the first and second level. Caleb Farley's there. Caleb Farley's a player that you and I have mentioned at length as being someone that could be boom or bust because he just seems to be a snake-bitten player, but nobody's ever doubted his athleticism or his ability to go get the football and be a dynamic player in the back end. So I think if they're able to do that, they really haven't had that type of player. If they're able to do that, they're going to be just fine. Janoris Jenkins is also there. Elijah Molden is the player who I spoke about at length in the draft process as being a positionless defender that can play corner, safety, slot. He can do whatever. Very physical. Reminds me of a Honeyball in many regards. So I think that they're going to be well staffed in that area as well.
Andrew DeCecco, football at 4. We're looking at the AFC South, and we're going to head over to the final team in the division, Indianapolis, who obviously made the big deal to get Carson Wentz. So let's start with Wentz and how he fits in with Indianapolis. Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines. They got a good running trio. T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell. It's a good, not great wide receiving core. Mo Alley Cox, pretty good. Jack Doyle. They maybe have the best offensive line in football. So how does Wentz engineer this offense?
Well, pairing him with Frank Reich is certainly going to be to his benefit. They're going to be able to customize the offense based on what Carson Wentz likes and what he's struggled at this point in his career. The fan base there is going to be a little bit easier on him. I think being the everyday scrutiny from the Philadelphia fan base wears on a kid from North Dakota. I'm certainly not making an excuse. It's the NFL. You're getting paid to do a job. But I think that's going to sort of make his transition to the Colts a little bit more seamless. Now, there's plenty of weapons there, and the offensive line is there, so the excuses now have run out for Carson Wentz. He's going to have he has a receiver that can go up and get the football in the red zone, and Michael Pittman. I think he's going to take a big step forward this season. You have your speed vertical guys in T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell. Let's not forget Paris Campbell has blazing speed. He just has not been able to stay healthy and be on the field. Zach Pascal is a terrific possession receiver as well. So he has a lot of different receivers that can do a multitude of different things for the offense. They have a pair of tight ends that he can use in Mo Alley Cox and Jack Doyle. They both bring different elements to their game. So, and you have the running game. You have the pass-catching running back, Nyheim Hines, to really fall back on. And Jonathan Taylor, who can be a workhorse running back. So, they really do have they're in position for him to be successful. Now, you really have to see, does he have what it takes? Because now there's no more Yeah, but the offensive line wasn't good. There's no more. Yeah, but who's he throwing to? Now you got to step up and be the guy because the pieces there for you to be successful.
Yeah, the big thing too, though, as we kind of hinted at, their offensive line much better than what he's played behind at least last year.
Sure.
They have a very good offensive line, which is funny because all those years Luck was there. One of the reasons he left early and retired is because their line was terrible, and now it's one of the best.
Right. Yeah, and that was the biggest thing that held that team back. I think was their offensive line, and you saw what it did. You mentioned Andrew Luck as a great example. I mean, Deshaun Watson's been victimized by a poor offensive line as well. So, I mean, we talked about Joe Burrow last time. You have to protect your franchise quarterbacks because you don't know how long they're willing to hang in there and take that abuse.
Defensively, this is Jonathan Gannon, who was the secondary coach. He's now in Philadelphia, but their defense was one of the strengths, and their secondary very good. But Kwity Paye, they brought him in. DeForest Buckner, and they made that big trade last year. Darius Leonard, very good linebacker, good secondary out there. This feels like a team that has some pretty high expectations. It's one of the more well-rounded teams.
Yeah, and Grover Stewart is a phenomenal player that doesn't get nearly the amount of recognition that he deserves. He's been a really steady player, their nose tackle. You've mentioned Kwity Paye, of course. Kwity Paye was a player that we mentioned on the show as being a steady, strong, powerful edge rusher. I don't know if he'll ever be a double-digit sack guy, but I think that he's going to be a force and a presence against the run. And he has players around him to sort of complement his skill set. And DeForest Buckner, of course, who you mentioned. Robert Windsor, I think the former Penn State Nittany Lions there as well, if I remember correctly. I believe they drafted him last year, and he's a good rotational interior lineman as well. And then when you look at the linebacking core, Bobby Okereke, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated pass defending linebackers in football. I think he has tremendous sideline-to-sideline speed and range, and he can drop back and cover whether these hybrid tight ends, these running backs that are getting out of the backfield and have that dynamic presence. He can do it all. So I really like him. And then Darius Leonard, I mean, you saw what he's been able to do in his past few seasons in the NFL. He's just been tremendous from South Carolina State. And then when you look at the secondary, you got guys like Rocky Sin, who I think is starting to come into his own. Took a little while, but of course he was their second round pick in 2019 from Temple. Julian Blackman is another. We mentioned all these underrated players that they have. Well, he's a phenomenal safety that does not get a lot of recognition, but he's starting to come into his own. I think he's going to become a household name this season. Kenny Moore is one of the best nickel defenders in football. So yeah, you mentioned it's just a very well-rounded team. The depth behind them, however, behind the starters is questionable. So health is going to be paramount with this team. They're not especially deep in a lot of areas.
All right, Andrew, this division, Indianapolis, Tennessee, Houston, I guess, and Jacksonville a little off, but it's going to be probably a pretty interesting two-team race. How do you rank the four AFC South teams?
Well, I'm a big Tennessee Titans fan, or Titans proponent this year. I like what they've done to build the roster, construct it. I think they've always been just a piece or two away. They've bolstered their pass rush. So I'm a fan of what they've done. I'm going to put them number one. I think the Colts are ultimately going to go, obviously, as far as what Carson Wentz can take them. But I mean, the other teams are such a distant third and fourth away that I think that I got to slot the Colts at 2. Then I'm going to go Jacksonville. Then I'm going to go Houston Texans.
All right, Andrew DeCecco, our division previews continue on Friday with the AFC West, and then we'll get into the NFC for next week, leading you right up to Eagles training camp. We'll take a look at the AFC West Friday, and then next week on Tuesday when Andrew's back, we'll go back from the NFC West all the way up to the East, and then we will be kicking off our look at the Eagles training camp. Of course, don't forget the Inside the Birds podcast drops on Thursday at 6 a.m. The new one is out. They take a look at the Giants with Greg Cosell. Andrew DeCecco, football at 4. All right, my man, I'll talk to you Friday.
Sounds good, Mike. Have a good week.
You too. There's Andrew DeCecco here on the Sports Bash. Football at 4. It is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. By the way, I got the Phillies lineup today. It's Segura leading off, Real Muto catching, Harper in right, McCutchen in left, Hoskins at first, Gregorius at short, Alec Boehm at third, and Travis Jankowski is playing center field and batting eighth tonight for Aaron Nola, who gets the ball against Jake Arrieta. It's an 8:05 start. Phillies and Cubs, there's your lineup. No Herrera in the lineup tonight, which is interesting considering Arrieta's a right-hander. So Jankowski will get the game tonight in center field. Day off for Herrera. Nola is on the mound. All right, when we come back, on this day, July the 6th, we'll take a look at some of the top stories that happened on this day. Later on, it's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT is in the house tonight at 5 o'clock here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, you can watch the show live, video streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Just search 973 ESPN on any of those three platforms to watch the show live. All right, here we go. Sports Bash live on a Tuesday. I hope everybody had a great 4th of July weekend. I enjoyed the weekend greatly. Josh Henning is my producer. How was your 4th of July weekend?
It was nice to decompress.
Yes. It's nice to kind of, yesterday we did the special State of the Teams, and it's funny because I was at the beach yesterday, and I had texted my father, and I said, hey, you should take, come on down to the beach. He said, you're on the radio right now. How are you at the beach? Happens.
Magic.
No, yesterday, full disclosure, that was, a pre-done State of the Teams. It was recorded, during the week last week, which we like to do during holidays a lot. Kind of keep the local angle, the local aspect to give you that kind of feel. So we like to kind of throw that in there. But today's what? July the 6th. These are events that happened on July 6th. Do you remember? 1933, Major League Baseball's first All-Star game is held. The AL beats the National League 4-2 at Comiskey Park in Chicago. Babe Ruth gives the fans what they want. It's a 2-run homer in the bottom of the third. The MLB All-Star Game, 1933. We're going to check in. Susie Hunter is in Denver this week for her ballpark tour. She's going to Coors Field for the All-Star Game.
Do you still care about the All-Star Game?
I haven't cared about the All-Star Game in quite some time, to be honest with you. It's a shame.
Okay, that is a shame.
Just, used to have back when you were a kid, your guy was in your uniform, the one guy that represented. I mean, I think that's probably something that's a little past its expiration date.
You're calling that old-fashioned.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think I liked when the game meant something, to be honest with you.
I know you're on that band, right? You're kind of in a minority with that.
I know, but I thought the game was a better game. They played better. They played
Well, I thought they played good even before they had something on the line. It was the mentality going into it. People actually cared about playing the game of baseball.
Yeah.
Some of these guys, the problem is they care more about what the game does for them than the actual game itself.
Yeah, I mean, All-Star games in general, I think the baseball one's the best, though. I mean, that and the basketball. But baseball's the one that's the closest to a real game. The pitchers have to pitch.
Right.
They can't go out there and half-ass it.
Well, also the managers have to manage. You got to manage who's coming in, when in the game, and figure all that out. And there's strategy involved in it. If you're coaching the NBA All-Star game, what's your biggest problem? Want me to put LeBron back in?
No, but I mean the gameplay itself. Baseball is predicated on pitching. The pitcher has to still throw. He can't he's not going to go out there and throw 85 miles an hour.
Half speed.
Right. And he's pitching an inning. He's giving it to you. He's giving you what he's got. It's not like basketball where you might have the best defender in the world, and on that day, he's not really giving it to you defensively.
Now, really quick, Dave Weinberg and I are both fans of the home run derby. Your thoughts?
It's all right. I mean, it's like the hot dog eating competition.
Oh, come on. Now, you're being ridiculous.
No, I mean, it's on, so I'm watching it. I watch the hot dog eating competition. It's like Americana, hot dog eating.
I mean, I don't know if it's Americana, but I mean,
it's the only thing on that day.
Okay, so you have to watch it because it's on?
No, but it's like watching A Christmas Story on Christmas Day because it's on over and over again.
So you just do it because you're supposed to do it?
Yeah, I'm playing along. July 4th, you're giving me the hot dog eating contest. Fine, I'm not anti-American. I'm gonna watch the hot dog eating competition.
So I'm anti-American because I didn't watch the hot dog eating contest?
You don't watch the hot dog eating competition. Something's wrong with you. Why don't you watch it?
Because I think it's ridiculous.
Why? Guys eating hot dogs.
Yeah, whatever.
Actually, ladies eating hot dogs too.
Good for them.
Yeah, so why don't you watch it?
Because I'm not interested.
Okay.
Doesn't make me anti-American.
I think so.
I think you're being extreme.
I don't. And
I think
you don't watch that and marvel at the fact the guy was on pace to eat 90 hot dogs at one point.
Good for him.
That's not impressive to you?
I mean, it's interesting.
It's unbelievable. And one thing we notice is
I
guys
think hitting a home run, the home run is unbelievable. I can't hit for squat. You know what I mean? When I played baseball, I was a mediocre to below average hitter at best.
Not surprising.
Okay? To me, hitting a baseball is the hardest.
Hard. I think eating 76 hot dogs is harder.
I think hitting home runs are harder.
I don't think you could eat 76 hot dogs in 10 minutes.
Like when Josh Hamilton hit those home runs
Yep.
a few years ago, that was amazing to me.
Yeah, but think about this, okay? They're doing it off batting practice pitchers.
They're still doing it.
Right, but you're a professional baseball player. If a guy's cranking 70 miles an hour right down the middle of the plate, you're going to hit one out.
But the great thing is
You're
guys
not
are
eating
stressing.
76 hot dogs in 10 minutes, no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, but that's an anomaly.
Exactly, which makes it even more amazing. Nobody else can do that. That guy's the only guy.
Good for him.
It's amazing.
I think hitting home runs is amazing.
It is. Hitting home runs off of batting practice pitchers, though, isn't as
How many
amazing.
times in your home run derby you see the guy, he starts stressing, he starts overswinging, he starts panicking, he has to take a timeout, wipe the sweat off the brow. He realizes the stress is on him and he can't handle it. It's like drama.
I don't think so. You're hitting batting practice pitcher, some guy in his late 50s throwing 70-mile-per-hour fastballs right down the middle against a major league hitter. I'm expecting you to hit it out. I'm not expecting you to eat 76 hot dogs. Anybody.
Agree to disagree. How about that?
Do you think you could ever eat 76 hot dogs in 10 minutes?
Absolutely never.
Never. Yet you probably could hit one out by accident.
I don't know about that.
Probably not. I'm pretty sure I could hit one out by accident.
I have more faith in you being able to hit a home run.
Right, maybe
than
that's
me.
why I'm more impressed with the hot dog eating guy. Because I know I can't do that. There's no way. And
So
the
you're
thing
saying
is,
part of this is perspective too.
well, keep this in mind, and I'm not sitting here saying, somebody say, oh, Joey Chestnut's the greatest athlete of all time. There is something about it that's you can't do it. Don't knock this guy because he is super amazing at this thing. It's a lot of work. People just act like, oh, you're just a glutton. No, the preparation they do in their jaws to be able to do that is unbelievable.
Well, there's definitely preparation.
A lot of preparation. People just think it's gluttony. No, you see these guys, they put their heights in. Most of these guys are like speed poles. A lot of these guys are 6'4", 150, they're tiny guys. There's no big fat dudes up there. These are actually guys. There was a guy 6'9". Did you see that guy? You didn't watch it.
I didn't watch
There
it.
was a 6'9" guy.
You know, I had an alert on my phone. It told me Joey Chestnut ate 76 hot dogs.
Oh, we had.
And then I saw the highlights on SportsCenter.
We all watched it. Everybody's sitting around the TV watching it.
Good for you.
Yeah. Unbelievable. People were talking about it all night. I had text messages on my phone. Did you see what he did? Nobody ever texted me about the damn home run derby.
Well, maybe they were like baseball.
Maybe they don't think the home run derby is as impressive as you do.
Maybe.
Bobby Abreu had how many homers?
Oh, I was
Not a home run hitter.
Still
But
fun
he's
to watch.
cranking homers out because he's facing some old man throwing 70-mile-per-hour fastballs.
Yeah, well, the guy
That's
won
the
it.
thing. That's what's not impressive to me, is that a major league player that's an all-star, of course he's going to hit a home run against a batting practice pitcher. We have home run derbies for 13-year-olds.
I don't care.
They're cranking homers.
Good for them.
But none of them can eat 76 hot dogs.
None of them can hit a 500 for the home runs, though.
Not at 13, but they can hit them out.
Out of what? 280 feet?
No, the fields are 300 plus. Everyone, there's no 280 feet in 13-year-old baseball.
I don't know. I haven't played baseball in a long time.
I'm saying, it's not as impressive as the hot dog accomplishment.
Your opinion.
What else we got today? Bob Horner in 1986, I remember this, hit 4 home runs in a game at Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium against the Montreal Expos. Bob Horner reminded me of Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, that's interesting. All right.
1995, after being called up to the majors the day before, Astros catcher Jerry Goff hits a fielder's choice that drove in Jeff Bagwell in the 12th for a 5-4 win over the Padres at the old Astrodome there.
Good old bagpipes.
Yep. Those teams never did much.
They got the one World Series.
Yeah.
That was it.
2008, Rafael Nadal beat Roger Federer in 5 sets to win Wimbledon men's singles title. The match lasted 4 hours and 48 minutes, the longest Wimbledon singles final at the time.
At the time, because it broke it a few years later. A couple of 2019, 2018, Joker and Roger went ridiculously long. It was I think an hour longer than the Nadal match.
2002, Wimbledon women's singles, Serena beats her sister Venus, the two-time defending champ. Third time title match at a major in 10 months, and the first all-sister Wimbledon final since 1884. So they played 3 title matches in 10 months. There was a time where they were every tournament, it seemed like they were facing off in the final.
Or at least somewhere in the tournament. Yeah, sometimes they would face off like the semifinal, and we'd be like, oh, it should have been the final.
Yeah.
You know? That's happening.
And we mentioned Nadal beat Federer. Is Federer still alive?
Federer's still alive.
Wow. Nadal didn't enter. He withdrew.
That's correct.
Now, at a time, Nadal and Federer's bid to become the first guy to win 6 consecutive that time. I mean, I told you that Federer is almost 40.
Yeah.
You know, that's a sport where once you cross 30, you're pretty much done. He's almost 40.
Well, you know, him and Tom Brady talk.
Crazy.
Athletes are different now.
They are. That's true. None of them can eat 76 hot dogs, though.
No. But I don't think Joey Chestnut can do what Roger Federer's doing.
No. Well, that's the thing. No tennis player can do what any baseball player's doing.
Yeah, well.
I mean, if Roger Federer goes out there and takes BP off a 60-year-old man, he's not hitting one out. I mean, there's something to be said that the baseball player does have a unique skill set to be able to hit the ball.
Who do you think would be a better hitter in baseball? Would it be a tennis player or a golfer? Who do you think has the better hand-eye coordination?
The golfer.
Okay.
I do think tennis is very challenging. You can't just go out and play tennis. You're not going to be good. You can't just go out to neighborhood tennis court and start hacking it around. No. I do have but golfing's tougher. Like, I think if I played tennis a couple times a week, eventually, like, okay, I wouldn't say I'd be good, but I would be like, all right, I can't golf. I've golfed so many times and I stink. And I don't think that if I played more and more and more, I'd be any better.
Okay.
But I do think that tennis is extremely underratedly difficult. Like, you're not getting up there serving.
No.
You know how difficult it is to serve at that velocity?
I've tried. Failed.
Seriously. And can you imagine standing there trying to return a serve coming at you at 100 miles an hour?
Or even less than that.
Okay, in the 80s, 90s. But these guys are serving at 100, 120, some of them.
And they have the response time. They can actually get the racket on the ball and get it over the net.
It is underratedly difficult. Like, I don't think people think of, like, tennis being this extremely difficult, very skillful.
It is. It takes a lot of work.
A lot. I give them a lot of credit. Golf, very difficult, though. But tennis is almost...
It's a different kind of difficult. Too.
Absolutely. All right, there you go. That's what happened today, July 6th. See, this time of the year, you got a lot of the Wimbledon stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Round of 16 right now.
I'm looking forward to it ending, to be honest with you.
You're looking forward to Wimbledon, and I'm looking forward to the Euros ending.
Well, it's just like we get here, like I'm usually here around 10:30 in the morning, and today I got Wimbledon on both ESPNs up until 2:30, and then they've got UEFA on one of the ESPNs, and Wimbledon's still going on the other. I got Tour de France on NBC Sports Network. No, I just want something. I don't want anything.
No, the irony is that the NBC Sports Network won't even be there by the end of this year. What are they going to do with the Tour de France then?
I don't know. Maybe the USA Network, something like that.
I don't know. Maybe someone's not happy with the programming on CNBC in the middle of the day. I don't know.
That's a good question. What are they going to do with all of the... You know what I saw? I noticed this. The NBA Finals schedule's out.
Yeah.
It's a little weird because usually it's every other day.
Yeah, it's like weird gaps.
You know why? Because it's so late into July, they couldn't play on Monday or Tuesday because ESPN has the finals because of the Derby is on Monday
and
the All-Star game's on Tuesday, so they couldn't play on Monday or Tuesday.
Right.
So it's Tuesday, Thursday,
Sunday.
And then they're not playing again until Sunday, which I find to be interesting.
And then they play Wednesday.
Well, they couldn't play Monday or Tuesday because of the Derby.
Yeah.
That's why. And then it's Wednesday, Saturday. So they've really spaced that thing out. And then it's Tuesday, Thursday would be Game 7.
Well, you know, it's really smart they're not on this Saturday. You know why? McGregor 48-3.
Yeah, but that's late.
Yeah, but would you rather just, hang out and get ready for the UFC fights? You'd be bouncing back and
but
forth.
I'm saying, like, that fight card's not going to start till 10, right?
Main card, yeah.
So
But the NBA Finals game starts at 9
yeah, it
o'clock.
starts at 9. Well, they didn't need to do that. I mean, they could on a weekend. They could start that earlier. People aren't getting home from work.
They could, but they're not.
No, of course not. But Sunday, the game, they are starting it at 8 as opposed to 9. The one game is not a 9 o'clock start. It's Sunday.
Right, the Sunday one, correct.
Yeah, there's no Sunday night baseball this week.
But the Tuesday, Thursdays are 9 tips.
Every game is 9 o'clock tip. Everyone. Which
makes the Phoenix people happy.
Jeez. Well, with Phoenix, well,
Milwaukee's
of course, there's always
Central
a Western
time.
Conference team in it, but
Milwaukee's
Phoenix is not.
Central Time.
Yeah.
And then Phoenix is what, Mountain Time?
I would imagine Mountain Time. So it'll be an 8 o'clock start for them, 7 o'clock start for Milwaukee.
Well, no, 8 o'clock for Milwaukee,
8 o'clock,
7
yeah.
o'clock for Phoenix. You had it inverted there.
All right, Tuesday with Thompson coming up. PT will be here. More of your text, 609-403-0973, 609-403. Somebody texted in and said Prince Fielders was hitting home runs in Tiger Stadium when he was 11.
I believe that. That guy was an amazing slugger. Shame he messed up his neck.
Yeah,
but
he just vanished.
Well, he messed up his neck and he just stopped playing baseball. He's like, I just can't do it anymore. I'm going to hurt myself. He had to have major neck surgery.
More Sports Bash on the way. All right, 447 on the Sports Bash, live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. You can download the app at 973espn.com/app. I'm Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? We got NBA Finals Game 1 tonight, Suns and Bucks. We've also got Phillies and Cubs. I gave you the lineup there, which, if the Phils they got the pitching matchups in their favor the rest of the way here. They really do. You got Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin going the 3 games in this series the rest of the way. Now, there's no reason to think like they're going to have the advantage in the pitching matchup for the rest of this series here. There's no reason. Look, if you want to be a good team, you want to be a playoff team, I think I should be able to say against a team that has lost 10 straight games, the Cubs, when I have Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin going, I expect you to win. Now, you should say to me in return, you should never expect the Phillies to win with this bullpen. Yes, but with these starting pitchers going, you've got to win. You've got to go in saying, we got to win these games. Nola versus Arrieta, that needs to be a win. Wheeler versus Mills, that needs to be a win. And Eflin has to be that third guy in that game on Thursday night. You can get a sweep in this series. Now, the problem is you're looking at a Cubs team that if they get swept in this series would end up losing now 13 straight games. That's a lot to kind of ask. But guess what? You have the pitching matchups in your favor. You should be able to sweep this series. And then that sets you up to go to Boston. And unfortunately, Velasquez has been so up and down. He pitches the first game. Matt Moore against Nick Pivetta pitches the second game. And then Aaron Nola against Perez in the third game. I would think with these 6 games here, you have a good chance to go 4-2 in these last 6 minimally. And I wouldn't be stretching to say, hey, let me see you get to 5-1. Let me see you get to 5-1 with Nola throwing twice, Wheeler and Eflin in there with pitching matchups in their favor. Going to Boston and winning 2 out of 3 is going to be tough. So I would say the 2 losses in the Boston series, I never would sit here and tell you I think Vince Velasquez is going to win. On a night when he pitches, I just have no confidence that they'll win that game, especially in Boston. Matt Moore against Pivetta. Pivetta's been actually decent this year for them. He was really good earlier. He has not been as good recently for them. And then, again, you got the last game, Nola and Perez on that Sunday before you go to the All-Star break. If the Phils can somehow win, as I mentioned, 4 out of 6, I would imagine you win 4 out of 6, you gain at least a game in the standings. If you can gain 1 game in the standings before the All-Star break, you are now 3.5 games back, okay? If you're 3.5 games back entering the second half of the year, you're in the thing. Do I believe in you? Not necessarily. Are you in it? Sure. I'll play along. If I'm Dave Dombrowski, do I have to do I have to explore making this team better? Of course I do. This is a time where the Phillies can, look, we said when the Sixers got eliminated, can you shut everybody up and grab the attention of the city? So far, bupkis. Hasn't happened. Can they do it? Yeah, guess what? They've got some time here late in this first half of the season. If they win 4 out of 6 here, they might be able to grab you. And guess what? If they win 4 out of 6 here, they would enter the All-Star break at exactly 44-44. The Mets currently are 44-37. If you can get to 44-44 at the All-Star break, fresh slate, clean, will I give you a shot in the second half? Sure, I'll play along. But I think you've got to win 4 out of 6 here to make it logical for Dombrowski to start making calls. Now, when's the trade deadline? I think it's the 30th, right? I think it's July the 30th, which is it the 30th? I guess it is July 30th, which is the final Friday of July. Just seems weird that the trade deadline's on a Friday. I could be wrong. Maybe I is it the 30th? Okay. Yeah. I don't typically, it doesn't typically, I feel like fall. I know they don't, that's new, by the way. It is July 30th this year. So who's the buyers? Who's the sellers? Right now, I can tell you this, just looking at the standings and saying, okay, who's a buyer and who's a seller? Because, with the whole wild card situation, that second wild card, Boston's 4.5 up. The Yankees are 10.5 back. Are they buyers? They're 10.5 back in the division. Now, in the wild card race, they are 5.5 back. I mean, I can't sit here and say I think the Yankees are sellers, but I would say these teams potentially, like the Angels are interesting because they're going to get Trout back. They're 6 back of the wild card. After that, Detroit, Minnesota. Man, Minnesota's been highly disappointing. Kansas City, Texas, and Baltimore. Those 5 teams, I would say, are definitively out of it, sellers. In the National League, after Philadelphia, the Phillies are 7.5 out of the wild card. They're almost out of this wild card race already. In fact, the only team that's in the wild card race, I think, is the Reds. Other than that, the entire National League is out of it in terms of the wild card. The Cubs are 7 out. The Nationals 7 out. St. Louis, Atlanta, and Philadelphia are 7.5 out of the wild card. Colorado's 12, Miami's 12, Pittsburgh's 17.5, and Arizona's 26.5 out. The National League wild card is essentially set. So you're looking at the trade deadline and saying, if I'm making a trade, it's not to be the wild card team if I'm Philadelphia. It's to win the division. That's the only shot they got. That's what makes it hard in the National League. You got to say, hey, am I in play for the division? Well, Cincinnati's 6 back of Milwaukee. That's a lot of games to make up. 6. San Diego's 4.5 back of San Francisco. The Dodgers are a half game back. In the National League East, Washington's 4, Atlanta and Philly are 4.5. So the Phillies are in play for the division, but they are kind of out of it in the wild card race. So think about that when that deadline comes up. Dave Dombrowski. All right, Sports Bash Live on the other side. It's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT is in the house. We'll have a little fun. Stick around. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. This hour of the show brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. All right, 5 o'clock hour is upon us. The PT is here on a Tuesday with Thompson. Pete Thompson's in the house. Ooh, he's got his Phillies gear on today. You can see the PT live on the live video stream over at 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Of course, it's a Tuesday with Thompson here. The PT is in the house. Peter, how are you, pal?
I'm doing well, Michael. How was your 4th? Looks like you guys had a nice time. Good holiday, good relaxing time.
Yeah, 4th was great. Nice long weekend. You know, it's my buddy's birthday is the 4th of July, so that always makes it.
Just give me the initials, because I think I know the buddy, but just the initials are.
Yeah, BP.
That's who I thought it was. Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yep. Birthday is 4th of July, so he has a nice little shindig over at his.
What do I got to do to get invited to this thing? I mean, you know, I know him too. What the heck? I mean, jeez. Every year you tell me how great this party is, and every year I just keep looking at the mailbox or looking at my phone.
Well, there's no invite. You know, you got to just show up.
Oh, all right. Well, I can do that.
Yeah, you just wheel yourself right on in. You know, PT comes walking in with the old. No one's going to say, "Hey, who invited you?"
All right. Well, then next year I'm in. Count me in.
Well, you say that every year. You never show up.
That's not true. I don't think I've ever been invited.
It's not like some, you know.
I mean, I'd like to go. I'm just saying.
You're in.
All right. Thank you.
So that was on Sunday, which was on. You know, Now I told Josh he's anti-American. He did not watch the hot dog eating competition.
I did not watch it either. But you know, I love hot dogs. And what did I find out? Something. They did some sort of calorie breakdown of like how many hot dogs he ate versus how many calories he pounded in. And look, it's just nice, dude, that we're getting back to like normal. People got to see fireworks without masks.
They did it this year at a baseball stadium, the Coney Island place.
Right, where the Coney Island Express play. Sure. I mean, instead of the normal downtown, you know, at the Nathan's location there, because I guess they didn't want to cram too many. Look, you know, if you're trying to plan an event, or at least if you were trying to plan an event, which you have to do at least a year out, right? Month to month, things kept changing. I mean, that was kind of like how it was at school when we had prom and graduation. You know, there were some schools that had their prom outside on the football field. We were fortunate enough to have our prom at a venue inside, you know, just like normal, and maskless too, which I think the students were happy about. Or same thing with graduation. You know, last year the graduations had to be segmented. This year graduation was everybody was there. And you know where we were? ACIT's graduation was at the Sand Castle.
Oh, nice.
And no concrete fell on us or anything like that.
That's like, so it was at the ballpark. Now, I said it's like akin to, it's just like, you know, on Christmas Day, a Christmas Story's on. So you just watch it because it's on. The hot dog eating competition has become, hey, it's on. I'm just going to but did you see ESPN? It was getting a lot of heat because I could, like, to talk about how many people were watching this, it kept freezing. So they had to keep
I did see this. I saw that after the fact, but I saw that they had issues right at the critical moment. Like
it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. It started freezing.
Their live view probably went out, is what it is.
They went to commercial and then came back. It was like 50 seconds left when they came back, and then it froze again, and then they came back. And then, I mean, he was so far ahead that the drama, but he was going to break a record, which he ended up doing. He ate 76 hot dogs, Peter.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I mean, I think I could eat, well, the old me could eat 7. Now I could eat like 1 or 2, and I got to get rid of most of the bun. It just, not to go too technical, but they probably were using something called live view, which is how you go live now or how you do a lot of things. And in the old days, that would have all been hardwired. They would have ran cord and ran cable to every camera and everything so that it wouldn't drop out like that. And what you're essentially dealing with is sort of like a cell phone on steroids, you know, and just like sometimes you get in a bad area with your phone, or sometimes you're FaceTiming somebody and it drops out. That's essentially what they had, but at an awful moment for it to happen.
It was awful. And like, you're watching this, and the guy, like, he was on pace at one point. He was on a 90 hot dog pace.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Right.
So you're watching this guy and you're like, oh my God. Like, seriously, we're all sitting around watching this. Like, it was like, hey, we're all invested. We're watching this guy, and then it just freezes. So we're watching actually on cable.
Okay.
So I have YouTube TV. So I went and said, let me see if it's the cable.
It's the cable. And maybe, Yeah, that's always a frustrating thing too. Like, I mean, occasionally when NBC Sports Philadelphia goes down and you think like, oh, okay, the Phillies game is frozen. Is this me or is this the cable? And so you'll try to go to some other outlet and you realize there's nothing you can do. It's not you. It's not your TV. Sometimes it is, but in that case, no, ESPN screwed up. ESPN's had a tough week and a half or so, haven't they?
Yes, it has been a tough couple of hours for them, as a matter of fact. But the hot dog eating contest, I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I mean, hey, I say like it's on. I'm watching.
I've watched it before. Now, what time was it?
I think the pregame, like it's an hour thing, but it's fluff for 45 minutes.
Yeah, but the actual contest itself went
I think it starts around 12:45.
Okay, so I had done the show with Billy, and I hadn't quite probably gotten home yet to fire something up. Although I probably could have been home in time to watch.
Yeah, I mean the first 45 minutes is them just going through all the stories and yada yada. But like the contest is 10 minutes.
Yeah, like the Kentucky Derby, all the pregame, all the hype, and then it's the fastest 2 minutes of racing. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. It's funny. My guy Jason Fitz was the sideline reporter. I said, "How do you get that gig to be?"
Oh, that's awesome. And you've had him on since to talk about it?
No, it was on Sunday.
Well, when's he come on next?
Well, I didn't work yesterday.
All right. Well, then when's he come on next? I'm trying to segue and plug. Okay, what time? I'll be listening.
Your question was a Billy Schwein-esque question, okay?
Oh, how dare you, sir? I'm disconnecting right now.
Now, you were a part of that text chain.
Oh, my God. Well, Pete, but why do they have the fireworks?
Well, I'm listening to you guys, right? And, he's talking about the fireworks. I said,
listen, more often than not, as I'm producing the show, too, I'm trying to, check buttons, make sure the settings here. Am I here? Are we on the air? And then I'll ask some question that's just so ridiculous that I'm thinking dude, you don't really want an answer to that, do you?
Well, so he's going on about why didn't they have fireworks? And I'm like, you do realize they had 2 day games, right?
Yeah,
well,
2 of the 3.
You may have fact-checked him on that, but you didn't. So I said, hey, guys, just to let you know, the game was scheduled at 4, which is not conducive to fireworks, nor is the 1 o'clock start they had on Sunday.
That's correct.
To which, hey, it was 4:05. They could have had them after. I said, well, even if it's a 4-hour game, you're still not getting darkness.
Yeah, you're not going to have people wait around for fireworks. Normally fireworks have always been as soon as the game gets done, they hustle off that field as fast as possible. They used to let people down on the field. I don't know if they still do that or not. And then they shoot them off pretty much as quickly as they can because there has to be total darkness.
You wrote, I will explain. I never actually heard. I wasn't listening to see if you gave the explanation because Billy said yesterday's game was 4:05. There were no fireworks planned. Why not? And I said, I think I covered this. The day game is not conducive to fireworks.
You don't understand, sir.
He wrote, they were home. Why weren't fireworks scheduled? Again, I said I answered this question.
Right,
it was a day game.
Well, and you got to understand, when you're texting him during the show like that, that's just like the person that has the shiny little thing, like the laser pointer, and is messing with the cat, or the little pom-pom on the ball, just bouncing it up and down. I mean, Billy cannot, you are catnip and also arsenic to Billy. He cannot resist answering you and digging in. And you're talking about a guy, Gil, that when he read stats during the first round of the NBA playoffs, read these stats and they were totally wrong. And then he's like, why are these stats wrong? And he's reading the damn Wizards stats. He literally couldn't look at the logo of Wizards and Sixers and understand Wizards on the right.
Stones for that a few times. I thought that was pretty funny.
I can't not. Now I'll probably get grief for this too. Pete, I heard you guys. Come on now.
Oh, I've never met him more. He likes to give them, but he surely doesn't like to get it on the other side.
Well,
yeah.
So, at 8 o'clock, you can't shoot off fireworks.
You about the fact that we didn't like his movie selections.
Yeah, because I've never heard of North Shore before. I mean, I think he.
I've heard of it, but it's not something that's readily on television. That's the problem.
I don't think that he went I think he blurted out the first 5 movies that he could think of, rather than give it full depth.
Well, it's fine, but look. By the way, so 5 movies you've seen 10 times. You know what was on Friday night?
What is that?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yes, yeah.
And it's funny because, all right, so I've seen Shawshank so many times.
Weird.
you never get it at the beginning because you're always flipping through. Like, oh, it's on.
That's
You know
true.
how infrequently I've seen the first 5 minutes of that movie?
Right, which is where the golf pro sneaks in and, basically kills the wife and all that.
You always check in somewhere in the first 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But
That's right.
I said to my girlfriend, I said, I can't remember what the beginning of this movie is even like. So we actually went back because on TNT, I think it was on TNT or TBS, you can hit play and it'll play.
Oh, you can hit restart from beginning or something like that. Sure.
Right. So I went back and actually because we were in the first 15 minutes when I got in.
Okay. So why not? Yeah, I'm all for that. If we're doing some entertainment stuff, I'll tell you that I finally watched Mayor of Easttown, with the Delco accent and Kate Winslet. And it was really, really good. It was really good. Okay. So much so that Susan owns, no, it's a 7-episode miniseries. Kate Winslet plays a detective who's trying to solve a murder case, and she has some of her own personal trauma. She's divorced, but her ex-husband lives in the house right behind her, and he's about to get remarried again. She has 2 children, but one of her sons, the son killed himself because he had some mental issues. So she's got all this on her plate, and a girl had disappeared a year before, and she couldn't solve that case, and now she's got a murder case on top of it. It's set in Delaware County, and so there's cheesesteaks and Yinglings and Rolling Rock and all the accents. They definitely, I mean, for Kate Winslet, who's British, to say Wooder or the way they do the O's is pretty funny too. But it was really riveting, and it was a good program, and I'd encourage you to check it out.
It's a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT's here, Sports Bash. Now, I want to ask you about some actual stuff here. The Phillies won 2 out of 3 against the Padres over the weekend. Their bullpen actually didn't blow those games. They actually were a part of the reason why they won the game, and then they won last night big. I say, look, this Cubs team's lost 10 games in a row, PT, and the Phillies have the better pitcher going the rest of the series.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm here, man.
Yeah, no, this is the time for them to make hay. And it's funny when you're sitting there trying to figure out what's going to motivate the Phillies to finally get off their butts and start playing better. Apparently, it's the trade deadline. And apparently, it's the fact that they know that Dave Dombrowski in the front office is not going to make any moves if they're not warranted. So, they were 16-26 in road games. They go into Wrigley last night. That was completely unexpected for me. With Matt Moore as the starter and coming off an 11-1 loss to the Padres at home on that Sunday game, which left a disappointing taste in my mouth. I didn't have a lot of optimism for last night's game, and all they did was blow out the Cubs last night. I mean, and blow them out big. They were losing, sure, 2-0, but all the moves that Girardi has been ripped so much for moves that he makes that fail, but everything he did last night worked. He actually put Andrew Knapp in the lineup instead of JT Realmuto, and Knapp had a home run that sort of jolted the bench awake. McCutchen, who they weren't even sure was healthy enough to play, went 3 for 5 with 2 doubles. I mean, his OPS is up 787 now. That's more than 100 points since June 1st. So maybe Kutch is heating up. Remember how bad he was at the start of the season in those first 2 months? And now here's a guy that he's got, since June 1st, 26 hits in his last 87 at-bats. I mean, that's great numbers out of Kutch.
Well, and they're sitting Herrera, and then today, just a couple moments ago, Girardi said that they might rest him a couple days. They feel like he's kind of hitting the wall a little bit. So you might see Jankowski play some more center field, or Luke Williams, one of those guys, the next couple of days, because Jankowski's playing center, batting 8th today.
Yep, saw Jankowski in the lineup and made note of that. That was my first thing, and because of that, then Segura moves up to the top. But the first thing I looked for was Realmuto in the lineup, and he's there batting second. You're going to leave Kutch in. It's interesting that they have Kutch batting cleanup, but that's because they've had Kutch actually lead off at one point, and he wants to be able to bring runs in, not be the on-base guy, And look, anytime you have Alec Boehm down in the lower half or the lower third of the lineup, that's where he should be, quite frankly, until he can figure out everything he's doing. It was interesting last night. That was Boehm's, first home run in like a month or 2 months or something like that. I mean, I don't even care that it came off a position player. Things like that are the kind of thing that can maybe, jumpstart some hitting.
Yeah, it was a 67-mile-per-hour slider that he launched out of the ballpark. Now, look, I like Bohm. He hasn't been very good, and I think defensively has carried over a lot. He has been awful defensively, and I think that's been on his mind a lot because he's a guy last year. I mean, the guy hit like 340 last year, you know?
Yeah, he was really good last year. I mean, and he certainly, look, he's always been a defensive liability. And I mean, this team, if you look at the Phillies as a whole, the idea was that they're going to out-hit. The lineup was going to be so good that whatever their defensive shortcomings would be, that they'd outscore people. And really, if you look at all the places that have failed the Phillies, it's their offense that's failed them the most. I mean,
well, the bullpen, though, Pete, has
it's been brutal. Sure, but I mean, the bullpen actually is starting, and we had Scott Air on the show on Sunday.
Oh, I heard that, and I referenced that.
Great time talking to him.
Conversation to start the show today. I thought he brought up a great point about why this bullpen is what it is, and it's the fact that they can't throw strikes.
Yeah, it's like the number one thing of being a relief pitcher is to come in and throw strikes, and obviously, Neris has been to the moon and back, and all over the place. You have Alvarado, who they want to maybe have him come be a closer, but yet, he's got electric stuff. You just have no idea where it's going.
Can't close him.
Right.
Eric brought it up. You can't count on him to throw strikes. You just simply cannot put him in a situation where there is no other alternative. He can't close games when he can't throw strikes.
So now maybe Ranger Suarez is going to be the guy. In fact, they would have gone to Suarez last night, but then the offense exploded a little bit, and it went away from being a safe situation, so they didn't have to go with him. And hey, that was a good thing, to have a little a laugher last night, to be having a position player out there. It's about time that the Phillies were the ones doing that instead of on the receiving end of that.
Well, and I think Girardi mentioned it after the game last night, is that we've had to have the bullpen come in every night in a one-run game. Like, they never get – now, that's not entirely true, but he's talking about how a lot of these games have been one-run games recently. Now, they have blown leads of 2, 3, 4, 5, but a lot of their games have been close. It was finally they got a night where they could relax a little bit. They don't get too many of those.
No, definitely don't get too many of those. And boy, it was really I haven't watched a lot of the Cubs, but I remember – like a month ago, even, it seems, weren't the Cubs in first place? They are skyrocketing down.
Well, they lost 10 straight.
Yeah, and I had no idea that Jake Arrieta was now considered to be the worst pitcher in baseball. I mean, the guy's actually pitching for his job tonight.
Oh, well, he's been bad recently, yes. He got off to a decent start this year, and he has been pretty bad. But even losing 10 straight games, they're only – put it this way, they've lost 10 in a row and still have a better record than the Phillies.
Well, I definitely saw that this morning, too, as I was looking through different stories and thinking about sports and baseball, that if the Phillies were in any other division, and that means American League or National League, they could be in any other division, and they'd be sellers right now because they'd be out of it, because they'd be toast, cooked, done, Dunzaroo, over, and, kaput, right?
Well, that's interesting. Let me take a look at. So they would be in last place in the American League East.
Yep.
They would be in third place in the Central. They would be in last place in the West. They would be in last place in the Central, and they would be in fourth place in the West. So yeah, I mean, now they're in fourth place in the East too, by the way.
Right, but they're only 4.5 out. Fourth place in the West is 16.5 out. Fourth place in the Central is 9 out. Fourth place in the AL West is 9.5 out.
Oh, we talked about this before you came on, Pete. We mentioned they're 7.5 out of the wild card. They ain't making the wild card. I mean, if they're going to make the playoffs, it's because they're going to catch the Mets. They're 7.5 back of the wild card. That wild card in the National League, it's decided already.
Yeah, which is a little bizarre, isn't it? It wasn't the whole point about the wild card that it's supposed to go, it's supposed to provide a thrilling finish and give a chance down to the end. And yeah, they're completely buried in the wild card race. Obviously, Dodgers, Padres, Reds kind of sniffing in the top 3 up there. But that's craziness to think about, that we're not even to the All-Star game, and the wild card is almost a foregone conclusion.
I would say on the National League side, it is going to be 2 of the teams out west are going to make the wild card. That's not crazy to say. Now, in the American League, You got Tampa and Oakland are currently, and then Seattle's 3.5, Toronto's 4, Cleveland's 5, the Yankees are 5.5. The Angels are 6. They're interesting because they're going to get Trout back here soon.
That's true.
They can get back into it. But the American League at least has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are still in the mix. Where the National League, you only have one team that's really within 6 games of the 2 wild card spots.
Yeah, that's the Cincinnati Reds. And by the way, what's got into the Reds? They've won 5 in a row.
They were supposed to be really good. I mean, I think they've been a disappointment, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, who did they win all these games against? Oh, Padres. Oh, there you go. The Cubs. They're the health spot. They won the last game of their series with the Padres because the Phillies just saw them in that one-off. Remember when they played the Phillies just for
that was
on that Monday? And that was, of course, they beat the heck out of the Phillies 12-4, but then they lost 2 or 3 to the Padres. So the fact that the Reds then swept the Cubs and won their first game against the Royals, that's what's got them on a little hot streak. But and by hot streak, I mean 4 games above 500. That's the thing.
PT's interest in the NBA Finals is?
I'm curious. I don't like the late start times, although I'm starting to morph to my summer schedule, which is stay up a little bit later and get up a little bit later. So I have not been getting up at 5 a.m. I haven't even been getting up at 7 a.m. I think it's, to me, and I still actually am signed up for those SIG stats, and so when I was writing my column for Shore Local yesterday, I noticed the fact that none of the players had ever, there's a big shortage of NBA championship experience. No player on either team has ever won a championship. It's the first time that 0 players since 1977 when the Trailblazers played the Sixers. So, that to me, I like the Phoenix story, the fact that they're in it for the first time, although I'm not paying $89,000 for a courtside seat. Are you high? I like, the Bucks and will Giannis play or will he won't play, or is he not going to play, or how much is he going to miss? I'm intrigued by it. I'm definitely intrigued by it.
So I heard you talk about this with Billy the other day. The tickets, there's a ticket for $89,000. What's that, a courtside seat in Phoenix?
Yeah, courtside seat in Phoenix was listed on StubHub or one of those places for $89,000.
Jeez.
I mean, my God.
You didn't see that to an LA game.
Yeah, I've never heard of it before or since, but I mean, that's unbelievable that,
I mean, Phoenix is a pretty, they haven't been in the finals since 93.
Right. Yeah, they haven't been in the finals since 93. And, look, they call it Paradise Valley, Phoenix and the Tempe and all the different towns that are listed around Phoenix. But Paradise Valley is the Longport, right? That's the high rent district of Arizona there, of Phoenix. So if somebody is going to put up that money, or who knows, I just saw the kid I went to high school with held the white party of the summer in the Hamptons over the weekend. So you got to be kidding me. And everybody came out, my boy, Mike Rubin, right?
Right, exactly. Didn't you talk to him one time? He was like Joe Flacco to Billy Schweim. He
did not. No, he didn't. We took a picture together. He was very nice to me. He was very happy to see.
Now, what happened with the whole? You were saying you were going to tell the story about you going to Flacco the other day.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty easy story. I'm out at the Ron Jaworski Celebrity Golf Classic, and I'm getting all the different interviews. And, I get some of the easy guys, right? Mickey Morandini was there. And, of course, you get Jaws, and I see Mike Quick. I had a very nice lunch with Merrill Reese. I didn't interview Merrill Reese, but, hello, Peter, how are you? And we sat down and had a nice little lunch together, so that was cool. But I got a bunch of interviews, and then at the very end, I was kind of hanging on, and I saw Joe Flacco. And he's actually seen me before. So I started off by showing him a picture of him and I at Jaws's event at Atlantic City Country Club. That's how long ago it's been. And so I showed him the picture, and he says, "Oh, wow, that's a long time ago." I said, "Yeah, it was right after your Super Bowl with the Ravens." And I said, "Well, listen, would you mind if I do a little interview with you?" He said, "Yeah, sure." So we go through, we do the interview, we get done. And I said to him, hey, this is going to air on Sunday I work with a guy named Billy Schweim. And he kind of tilts his head. And he goes, is that the guy that keeps trying to get me to come on? And I said, yeah. I said, he barks a lot, but he's harmless. And he goes, well, now I came on. I said, yeah, no problem. I said, I really appreciate
it. Did the Schweimer count that as he's been on with now he has been on with Billy in the past.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, look, I don't even think it's as much that he wasn't coming on. It's that he would say that, look, I'm shy, I don't want to come on, and then he'd see him on like Channel 6 Action News, or he'd see him on some other broadcast network. That was really lighting Billy's views. Like, don't tell me you don't want to do interviews, but then you're on somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it was a fun time out there. I was happy to see. I mean, Gil, do you know how long I've known Ron Jaworski? I mean, I was probably 10 when I met him the first time at Green Valley Country Club, and he was wearing these plaid pants. I mean, he and I go way, way back. So it was really nice to see him. Good they had a successful event out there. Great to see everybody. I enjoyed it very much.
All right, a Tuesday with Thompson. The PT's here. You got anything else you'd like to talk about, Peter?
Not really. I mean, I'll be looking tonight, see if I like the Suns. I picked the Suns in 6. That was my prediction, and I actually saw somebody else that's much smarter than me pick the Suns in 6. So
yeah,
I feel comfortable with that pick. I am like you. I have no interest in Wimbledon, so get the tennis off of there as soon as possible. I saw something today that
I respect the game. Like, I think it's a very challenging game. I just don't have if you told me I'm getting the finals, okay, you're giving me every match leading up to the finals, I think it's excessive.
Yeah, and I did see something today about that they're doing away with Manic Monday. So maybe that was the other thing, too, that Wimbledon is changing the format. What you saw yesterday, you couldn't get away from because they play every match in one day, and they had to close the roof at one point. But there's change. There used to be what they called a middle Sunday. They used to take a Sunday off, like a day off where they didn't have anything. And now that they're going to eliminate that middle Sunday and keep rolling right through so that they don't have any more what they call Manic Monday. That's what I read about, at least. So, more power
right
to
now, during the day while we're here, you've got Wimbledon on all day on one channel, and then they transition to the Euro, which I'm just not a big soccer guy.
Right.
So I'm not here interested in watching either one of them. So we don't have a lot of options on the green channels as they're.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, you have that old cable that has the green color on the Comcast. I turned on the Irish Open on Sunday on the 4th of July. I was watching a little golf from across the pond, and I just put it on there. And sometimes I'll put on SportsCenter just in case there's some breaking news or something like that comes in.
What's more impressive to you, guys hitting home runs in the home run derby, or Joey Chestnut slamming down 76 hot dogs?
It is so hard. I love hot dogs, but I anytime you can hit that many home runs, you're hitting a round ball with a straight bat. Like I'm impressed that anybody can hit it over the fence. So I'm going to go with the home runs.
I'm disappointed in you, Peter.
I know you wanted me to go for the hot dogs. Hey, I'm a new guy. I can't even have 7.4 hot dogs. No less.
Nobody else is eating 76 hot dogs. There's multiple guys who can hit the ball over the fence.
That I guess. I mean, I can't.
Mind you. Well, you can't. That's not saying much,
dude. One of my highlights was when we went and found a bag of baseballs in the garage, or a bucket of baseballs, like 40 of them, and we were all in high school. And we went down and we went to basically the pony field, like where the kids, like the 9 and 10-year-olds played, right? So we went on a field that had lesser dimensions, and there was just like 3 of us or 4 of us. So pitcher, hitter, and a couple guys to stand in the outfield and retrieve the balls. And we had 3 or 4 old wooden bats, and we had our own home run derby. I'm 50, and I still remember doing this at 16 and having just a great old time.
People don't realize, the home run derby, you've got a guy in his mid 50s throwing 60 miles an hour.
That's true.
To a guy who's used to hitting a 95 mile per hour. So the feat isn't all that impressive when you think about it.
Yeah, but the stamina it takes to stand up there. I mean, because look, you've seen even some of the greatest home run hitters. They approach it wrong and they flame out. So
are you watching? By the way, are you watching the match?
Oh, I'm totally watching that tonight. I'm glad you brought that up. Very
it's
much
so. On.
Well, I know, but I had a little commitment. I had to be on a radio first, and this is pregame. I think 5 to 5:30 is pregame. 5:30, it's actually starting,
which is right now.
Okay, well then I got to go.
All right.
Talk to you on Friday.
No fireworks tonight, Peter.
For you?
Anybody. It's a road game.
Oh, well, the Phillies will have their fireworks.
Phillies did poor planning. I said, well, I don't think they picked to play at 4:00. It was given to them.
They have this Players Association and the union and a bunch of other things. I mean, come on.
Now, the day that they are having fireworks is the 16th. They actually have a double header that day. You should ask Billy. You think they're going to do the fireworks after the first game at 4?
Oh, you know he's listening. You know he heard you say that right now. I'll be getting a text in a couple minutes here.
I don't understand. Why did they do that?
Mike.
Nate Geary, by the way, got released by the 49ers.
Oh well,
that's your boy. He's Nebraska.
Yeah, but there hasn't been a good Nebraska player on the Eagles since what? Correll Buckholder?
Probably. What happened to Stuart Bradley?
The kicker was terrible. Stuart Bradley tore his ACL, was never the same again. Ruined his knee or whatever. So he was nothing, right? I mean, boy, I'll tell you what's the tougher fate if you're a Temple football player with the Eagles or a Nebraska football player. Both my schools I support. Once they get to the Eagles, it's like toxic.
Oof.
Oof.
All right, Peter.
All right, man. Talk to you, buddy. See you Friday.
Happy Hour Friday. The PT will be back. Oh, by the way, Peter, you still there?
Yep, still here.
Oh, I want you to. You're going to be in Wildwood this weekend.
Oh yeah, well, hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit more on Friday. But the New Jersey State Barbecue Championship's back, and I couldn't be more excited. I've been going down to this now for 3, 4, 5 times, I guess it's been, and it's awesome. I mean, if you haven't been, and it's sanctioned by the Kansas City Barbecue Society, so I mean, it's first of all, the smell is like, oh, you're like Homer Simpson, your mouth waters, and they got craft beers and live bands and vendors and all kinds of stuff. And it's all there in North Wildwood, and it benefits the Anglesey Blues Festival and the Anglesey Volunteer Fire Company, who I can't say enough about those guys. Remember the one year we had some connection issues, and they set us up inside the firehouse, and I got to see how the firemen live, and ooh, that was real respectable like. So I can't wait to get down there. I'm there from 12 until 2 on Sunday for that.
Saturday.
I'm there from 12 until 2. I believe it's on Sunday, sir. You said Saturday. I think it's Sunday. No, it is Saturday. You're absolutely right. I couldn't be there from 12 till 2. I would have to beam me up, Scotty, to get in 2 places at once. You're right. Saturday. Like I said, I'm there from 12 till 2 on Saturday. Thank God you know the details.
That's right. All right. So for more, go to njbbq.com to get all the details about this year's New Jersey Barbecue Championships. Pete Thompson will be there from noon to 2. You can shake hands and kiss babies with the PT. He'll be calling in to Sports Bash Saturday with Josh throughout the day, giving updates down there. So we'll talk more about that on Friday's Happy Hour Friday. Nothing better than Happy Hour Friday with barbecue.
That's right, man. Barbecue and happy hour go hand in hand, buddy. Can't wait.
All right, Peter.
All right, Michael. Thank you.
See ya. All right, Pete Thompson here today, brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage in South Jersey. For your next local or long-distance move, Clark's Moving and Storage is your first call. They're dependable and always show up online at clarksmoving.net. All right, coming up, I told you the Phillies lineup. That is out for tonight's game against the Cubbies. We'll also, I want to dive into one Eagles player considered top 5 by NFL executives at his position. Find out which guy right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. Over at 97.3 ESPN.com, NFL executives, and there was like 50 executives, players, scouts, coaches that were all polled. They're going to be doing this all week long leading up to training camp, ranking the best players at each position. As Eagles training camp approaches, a lot of the focus will be on the camp battles, the depth of roster battles. You got stuff like that. But one guy, keep in mind, who's still on this team, there's still some top-end talent on this Eagles team, and one of those players is veteran defensive tackle Fletcher Cox. He's 30 years old, the former number 12 overall pick, still regarded as one of the best in the league when it comes to interior line play. Leading up to training camp, ESPN surveyed more than 50 league executives, coaches, scouts, players to help find the top 10 players at 11 different positions. And they still hold Fletcher Cox in high regard, ranking him as the number 5 overall interior lineman in football. Said one scout, a little bit on the descent, but you know where he is at all times. He still tops on the scouting report when you prepare for Phillies defense. There was a time not too long ago when he was number 2 and you wouldn't look back. Added an NFC executive, he's still a problem to me. He was on a bad defense. So those two things. One scout said that he is still tops when you prepare for Phillies defense. My question is that a good thing? Is it a good thing that Fletcher Cox is still the top player on this defense? Or is that one of the reasons why you think this defense is a problem? Because if you look at it, when you play against the Rams, the best player on that defense is Aaron Donald. And most people look at that and say, that's a problem. Like, playing against them is a problem. But it feels like we don't say the same thing about Fletcher Cox. Now, he's not quite Aaron Donald. There was a time, though, last year he ranked 3rd on this list. Now, the list was Aaron Donald 1, Chris Jones from Kansas City 2, DeForest Buckner from Indianapolis 3, Cam Hayward in Pittsburgh is number 4, Fletcher Cox, Philadelphia, number 5, Jeffrey Simmons, Tennessee, number 6, Leonard Williams, New York Giants, number 7, Stephon Tuitt, Pittsburgh, number 8, Vita Vea, Tampa Bay, number 9, Grady Jarrett, Atlanta, number 10. And then a couple guys that were honorable mentions: Kenny Clark, Green Bay; Jonathan Allen, Washington football team; Quinnen Williams, New York Jets; J.J. Watt, Arizona; Akeem Hicks, Chicago; Jaron Reed, Kansas City; Eric Armstead, San Francisco; and Calais Campbell, Baltimore. They were the honorable mention guys. But Fletcher Cox still being in that top 5 means you have a player who was considered a top 5 player at his division in the league on your team. No other NFC East player is ranked as high as him. Now, some of the other positions in the league, now they're ranking them all the way. Edge rushers, they did yesterday. Philadelphia has nobody. Myles Garrett was 1. TJ Watt was 2. Joey Bosa was 3. Khalil Mack is 4. Chandler Jones was 5. Von Miller was 6. Chase Young is 7 from Washington. So you got one guy from Washington in on this list. You got Nick Bosa, number 8. Here's a question for you, Josh. Who's a better pass rushing family, the Bosas or the Watts? If you could say you could have a brother tandem on your team, would you go with the Watts or the Bosas? Which one are you going with?
I'm going to go the Watts because I think there's a little more ferocity there. I think Joey's the weak link here. Like, Nick's a phenomenal pass rusher. Joey's a very talented.
Joey Bosa's ranked 3rd on this list.
I don't think he's
Nick
third.
Bosa 7th on this list. No,
I think
8th.
I think Nick's better than Joey. I
It's
think
hard
that
to tell. Nick Bosa's had an ACL tear.
he did, but when he was healthy, he was phenomenal. I think people confuse, like, to me, a pass rusher is a guy who gets after the quarterback. I think Joey's a very good, talented defensive end, very good edge player, but I think his ability to get to the pass rusher is a little overrated. Whereas I think TJ Watt is an elite pass rusher. I think when JJ Watt was at his prime, he was unstoppable. People were triple teaming him. He was still making life quarterbacks just hell.
So Joey Bosa, his pass rush is 5th best in the league. He gets a pass rush on 25% of plays. He is pressuring the quarterback.
Okay, so is he getting a quarterback pressure every time?
Yeah, his pass rush win rate is 24.9, which is 5th best in the league. He created 26 incompletions.
How do you measure a pass rush win rate? Like, what is that?
I guess how much pressure that you put on, or
because, for example, like one of the things I look for at the end of an NFL game is I look at the number of times there were quarterback pressures and quarterback hits. I ignore sacks half the time. Well, does that mean Bosa is getting to the quarterback each of those times, or is he just winning his matchup?
I think that he's winning his matchup and causing pressure.
It sounds like there's a little gray area there with that stat.
Well, this is from 50 executives. They have Joey Bosa, number 3. Mm-hmm. They've got TJ Watt, number 2. Now, they had JJ Watt as an interior defender.
Correct.
And he was in the top 10. Or no, I think he was in the top 10. But Joey Bosa, 3. And Nick Bosa, they have number 8.
It sounds like to me what they're trying to say is that the perception is that Joey Bosa is more of a disruptor than people give him credit for. Mm-hmm. It sounds like that's what they're trying to say.
Now, Cameron Jordan was number 9. His pass rush win rate is 11.6, which is way off from Bosa.
Yeah, Cameron Jordan's another guy that's kind of – I've always considered him an anomaly because every time I watch a Saints game, I feel like he could have way more of an impact, but – there are times where it seems like he gets kind of stuck in the minutia of what he's doing, and he's not as focused on actually like getting to the quarterback. He's too focused on getting past his guy, so he loses track of timing.
Now, on that list, there was Washington football Chase Young. He was number 7. Fletcher Cox was number 5 on the interior list. There's no Dallas player yet on either of these two lists. There was one Giant player, number 7. So of the two lists so far, Fletcher Cox is the highest ranked player. The Eagles, though, did not have any outside edge pass rusher. And the honorable mentions did not include Brandon Graham. I thought maybe Graham would be in there. They had Shaq Barrett, Zadarius Smith, Frank Clark, Brian Burns, Matt Judon, and Bud Dupree.
Interesting. Yeah.
I thought that Brandon Graham would have made that list.
Yeah, I thought Brandon Graham would have made that list. I feel like Bud Dupree is a little bit of a reach because he's actually a linebacker who functions
Khalil Mack
as a situational pass rusher. But Khalil Mack plays every down.
This is edge rushers, not defensive ends.
But Khalil Mack plays every down. Bud Dupree doesn't play as much as Khalil Mack does.
They're going to do – so we'll look at these lists throughout the week here.
I bet you there's no Eagles linebackers.
Well, they're going to do – they did edge rushers, interior defensive line, off-ball linebackers.
Okay.
Will be tomorrow. Corners Thursday, safeties Friday, offensive tackles Saturday, interior offensive line Sunday, and then next week it'll be quarterbacks, running backs, wideouts, tight ends.
Consider me intrigued.
I'm in. These are there's lists that the writers do. These are coming from the executives.
Right. It's a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
I think it's a more valid perspective, maybe.
They are asking each executive, 50 executives, coaches, scouts, and players, to rank the players at each position. They give their best 10 to 15 players at each position.
Interesting.
All right, we'll wrap up the show when we come back. All right, 5:52. Getting ready to wrap up the show. As by the way, game night tonight. Brian Toporek, is that tonight or is that from last week?
That's tonight.
Brian's back.
He's back.
Previewing the NBA Finals.
That's
take
right.
it.
Absolutely. And we'll get into some of those Ben Simmons trade rumors.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Brian thinks about that because, I was listening to the Ringer podcast with Chris Mannix, and they were talking about the Ben Simmons stuff. And, I thought Mannix's comments were interesting, that he thinks there's going to be more value out there than most people do, and that he says that that other teams hope that Morey is on the side of, I don't think we're going to get a lot, so I'll take your crappy offer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Scoop B was telling me last week on game night, he was saying that he feels like that there's more teams calling the Sixers than have actually been reported, and that the Sixers are going to have offers to move him if they really want to. He told me, he says, listen, if the Sixers want to move him, and Ben Golliver told me the same thing, by the way, from the Washington Post, they both feel like if the Sixers want to move Ben Simmons, he will be traded. So
if the Sixers want to move Ben Simmons, there'll be offers. They'll have.
Well, some people say there's already offers.
Right. Well, there's already offers, but they've already shut that one down. Malcolm Brogdon. There's a lot of people out there that would say, I would do that, and the Sixers have already said not good enough. That tells me Brogdon in a first-round pick's not an awful offer.
How do you feel about the rumor of Ben Simmons to the Kings for Buddy Hield and De'Aaron Fox? How do you feel about that rumor?
I did see that. I don't know that it was a credible source.
That's why I said it's a rumor. I didn't say it's a report.
I
call some of these rumors. They're not reports.
Yeah. I like De'Aaron Fox. The problem is he doesn't shoot very well, but he's a hell of an explosive guard.
He's a hell of an explosive guard. I think the problem is you take a huge step backwards defensively. You go from Ben's defense to De'Aaron Fox on the perimeter.
People don't want to hear that.
I don't care what they want to hear. I'm telling the truth.
I'm just kidding. People don't want. They don't want to hear about the defense. Oh, but the defense. Look, it's going to be a factor if they don't have him out there defend. One of the reasons they have to keep him on the court is because if he wasn't on the court, they would have lost by 15 to some of these games.
Yeah, especially with that Danny Green late in that series. He was really the only legit perimeter defender in many situations.
Yeah. All right. Toporek at 6:20 tonight on game night, and then the NBA Finals tonight.
Coverage at 8 p.m.
I'm back tomorrow. Mike McGarry's back with me tomorrow.
I'm sure you're looking forward to that conversation.
I always look forward to that conversation. I missed yesterday. He wasn't on yesterday. Jason Fitz, after he was the sideline reporter for the hot dog eating competition.
That's the real reason why you're
I want to ask him about the technical difficulties. Did they know it?
Did they know it was happening?
Yeah. I'll back tomorrow. Have a great night.